This
out the
conference
latest
will now be recorded.
fire department numbers to everybody. Give me 2 seconds to do that and I'll bring the meeting to order.
You're so disorderly in here.
I rely on Justin to be the man, but it's all good.
Got it.
We'll get it, we'll get it. Uh-oh. You know what? I do not have Steve Pullman's green.
It's Green Farm or something like that.
No,
Yeah, he has a
nothing.
personal one.
I actually was wondering, Roger, are you gonna make Steve a town email?
Yes, eventually, we'll all, there'll be a town email, yeah.
Yeah.
Working on that it's still in, work in progress.
Okay.
So, sorry to be on the slow side here. I do not have his, so when he comes, I'll ask him. Or you can send it to me and I'll send it out again.
Our town email's also Outlook.
Okay. All right, it is 5:04. This is the Monterey Select Board. Acting Chair Susan Cooper. Our chair is online, Justin Maycook, and Frank Abbott is here with me in Monterey Town Hall, and I bring the meeting to order. Let's see, what's first up on our agenda is hiring Annabel Edelman as the administrative assistant to the town administrator. Do you want to tell us anything, Annabel?
I'm really excited to be here and I'm happy to be stepping into the position. Thank you.
So I will move. I'm not supposed to. You better move and let him second, right?
I make a motion to hire Annabelle to be the town assistant or whatever the position is. Administrative assistant.
I will second. Justin? Anything to say?
Thank you, Annabelle, and thank you, Roger, for advertising and recruiting and figuring it all out.
You're welcome.
Looking forward to it.
So, all in favor? Aye?
Aye.
That's unanimous.
There you go.
Thank you.
Thank you, Annabelle.
So I'll be sending,
Congratulations.
I'll be
Thank
setting
you.
up the onboarding and you'll get an email tomorrow.
Sweet.
To
I'll look
start
for
all the
it.
paperwork and all that. We'll get you all set in there.
Thank you.
Excellent, and your help is needed and will be welcome.
Excellent.
All right. Next up, high-speed internet grant funding, Fiber Connect.
I haven't had anything new. I haven't heard anything from Adam or anything, because the last I heard was we were still not so keen on the Verizon.
No, I don't have anything new. There's a couple of items I put on here that I don't have a whole lot about. I thought I might have more by today. But yeah, basically we'll have to table until next week. Don't have anything new here.
Okay.
Yeah, I know he was trying to apply for some of the BEAD, the BEAD money, and but I don't know where that was.
It
So
sounded like it could take a little bit.
It can't take
Okay.
too long because the deadline is coming up very soon. So
Yeah,
the end of the month. Yep.
TikTok. Route 23 Village Culvert update.
So again,
Go ahead.
well,
Justin.
we got an email from Dennis that
Yeah.
we're not at 100% permitting, like shovel ready. There's still a couple of questions up in the air, according to GZA. We do have a couple of different ideas for how to get funding for the construction phase. I'm not really sure what this entails yet as far as the remaining permitting questions, but Roger, did you end up talking to Dennis this week?
He stopped in today because there's a meeting that he from somebody with someone from EOED. Not quite, can't remember what that stands for. To talk about some funding options, and then there was something else about, some budget numbers from GZA that we were gonna look at for the remaining part of the project, and that's really what we were looking at. So I talked to him a little bit about, the, One Stop for Growth, Community One Stop for Growth, and, going in there and submitting an interest, that you go in there and you write, you basically tell them what you're interested in doing. So we talked a little bit about that to see if we can get some remaining funding through that. So that's kind of where we are.
For the match,
Expression of
that would be
interest.
for the, like, essentially for our town's match, or
Yeah.
to fill that additional slot between
Yeah,
what
both.
we can get and, okay.
That's what, because it was suggested to us from David Stokes from Mass DOT that we might be able to work. So I figured what the heck, we'll try it and submit an expression of interest, I think is what they call it, and EOI, and see where we go from there.
Hey, Jen.
Yeah.
That's all I really
I'm
know.
taking the hot water kettle to the movie now.
Yeah. Oh, sure. Yep.
Just
Awesome.
I didn't wanna step on anyone's toes. Sorry to bother.
Okay.
No,
Make
come on.
Make sure you're
We're
bringing
gonna
that.
report it as stolen.
Don't lose it. Don't lose it, Chad.
So I'm gonna take that to mean that I need to donate a hot water kettle to the Friends of the Library. Okay,
That's not the Friends, but that's, oh,
It's Council on Aging.
movie nights, the Council on Aging, they hold it.
yeah.
Yeah.
If it's already at the library, then yeah, okay.
Well, you're saying if you donated to the Friends, I just.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I just cut out the middleman. Bally Gally lease, so there's
Can I
nothing to
just-
act.
Sorry to
Okay,
interrupt,
read it.
Susan. Can I just
Oh,
follow
no,
up
no, go.
on the Route 23? So Roger, we will apply for the MVP Phase 3 in this cycle and the One Stop? Is that basically your understanding?
That's my understanding. That's where that's what Dennis has been saying. Yes.
Okay. In talking to Dennis, that email that he sent within the past week about not being 100% permitted, is that
Yep.
not a concern?
He doesn't seem to believe it's a concern. He's not saying it's a concern.
Okay.
So, yeah, he didn't say anything that it was bad.
I wasn't really certain. It was hard to interpret a little bit where that put us, but okay.
Yeah, I think it was one of those. It seemed like a good thing, bad thing, because there was like, because he was talking about the Muncie Indian tribes, so they were involved, and part of that, and them being involved was positive, even though we hadn't gotten all the permits. So he didn't seem concerned at all.
Yeah.
When I talked with him.
Do we need to double check that with, oh my God, I just lost her name, Courtney. I mean, it wouldn't be bad to hear that from a second voice, that isn't a problem, and also it would be good to have some idea of what the number is to fill that gap, because there's a big difference between 10K and 100K.
Well, I will forward you the email, Susan and Frank,
Okay,
from
Okay.
Dennis. It basically points out all of the remaining items that need to be done, or like this agency needs to be consulted to determine if we need to file the form with them. And yeah, I think ultimately Courtney, GZA, Dennis, I mean, this is just something that we need to keep in mind as we're moving forward, these last remaining permitting items.
okay. I can't believe it rolled around already. Like, I feel like we were just saying we weren't applying for this round, but was that last round? Or was that this round, but we changed our mind?
That was 10 months ago.
Okay,
Wasn't that long ago?
okay, thank you. It doesn't feel like it was 10 months ago, but
We were having.
I have no doubt that you are correct. It just feels like it was 2 months ago. Okay, is that it on that one?
Yeah.
Okay. Bally Gally lease renewal.
I guess we just there has to be a decision, but there weren't any changes to the lease or anything, right? I mean, I looked through it, they're responsible for, because that was a question based upon the,
Whatever. Utilities.
Yeah, utilities, and they're responsible for fuel, hot water, electricity, gas. This lease was originally signed in 2006, so,
2006,
yeah,
They've been in there a while.
yeah,
yeah.
Price is Right.
And did we discuss whether we were changing the rent?
Well, I guess my position, I wouldn't change it, right? The house is in need of work. We did check the revolving, fund, and there is about $25,000 in there. We probably should take a look at addressing
Yep.
some of the infrastructure issues, because they're just let the house deteriorate. My position, I would leave the rent the same. You know, if we had the furnace seems to be undersized when it was real cold. We had someone out there to repair it, the same people that repaired the furnace here. They said it's undersized for the house. I don't know what the age of it is. But I thought Jim might have a list of things that he's gonna do to that house.
I remember that he did,
Yeah.
like, he went in there and drew up a list, but I don't know what the heck.
I remember talking about the kitchen
He
cabinet.
went down the list, sitting in the meeting, and I think he was reading for something, but that doesn't mean we had the list.
I know at one point they, when I first started, there was conversations about working on in the kitchen cabinets and all that.
Yeah.
I don't know where that
I
went.
think you might ask Pete about it, because there's there, but I think what we should take a harder look at is like the heating system, the roof. You said 2006 was the original lease?
Yeah, yeah.
We have, roof 25 years, and so I think, maybe talk to Pete. But do you have a feeling about it, Justin?
I think that we should renew the lease. The only other question or concern that I had was that if the town's paying you any utilities, which is not 100% clear to me if we are or aren't, then we shouldn't be
But
paying
that
any
was my
utilities.
mistake last week.
No, we aren't paying utilities.
That was my mistake.
According to the lease, they pay the utilities, and the address, which looks similar, was actually for the community center.
Okay.
We're looking at the
Then
next hand.
then I would just be in favor of going ahead and signing the extension.
I'll second.
On the road?
Yes, let's call a vote, yes.
Yes.
Justin, yes.
And I will put out there that I definitely think it's time to go in and have another look at the building, make up a list of, and prioritize a list of things that might need doing, and start deciding how we spend that 25K that's in the revolving fund, plus anything that goes into it from the lease payments towards repairing whatever needs to be repaired so the property is maintained and doesn't degrade.
The only reoccurring bill we have is the pest control. It's
Yeah.
$91 a month.
Yep.
But
I wouldn't spend all the money that we have. We need to save a rainy day fund.
oh, I'm not saying we spend it all, I'm saying we need to know what we need to do, have some idea of what it's gonna cost, and prioritize the importance of the project so we can make informed decisions about what we go ahead with and what we don't. Cause without those other things, it's awfully hard to say what we should be doing.
Right.
You know what else? We have a spending limit on Bally Gally of $10,000 for the fiscal year.
We do?
Yeah,
Yes.
it's in the revolving fund. Yeah, it's
We-
not the-
We vote the
But I think
revolving
there's-
fund spending limit every annual town meeting,
Mhm.
and we set it at last annual town meeting at 10,000. So we might want to keep that in mind when we're making the warrant
Warrant.
this go
I'm
around.
just gonna say, yeah, but that goes with what I said. So we need to ascertain what the priority projects are and what they, have a ballpark of what they'll cost, because, and I'm not saying this is the case, right? But if there were an emergent repair that, let's say the roof, and it was gonna cost 14K, we're gonna wanna set a different limit, and we're gonna have to explain why. But we can't make that decision without a list and some estimates. That's all.
Okay.
Yeah. Do you think, can Pete do that?
He was there when they had heating issues
Right.
earlier, so yeah, we can go through that.
Are we good to move on? We agreed to sign it, do we have to actually sign
There
it?
actually is nothing for you to sign.
Okay,
It's just the tenant's signature.
okay,
It's basically, this actually ended back at the very end of December. the
so it's
31st.
retroactive, but that's fine.
Yep.
Is it 1 year or 3?
It's 1 year.
Okay. Town clerk hiring update.
We interviewed one person for it who was a very good candidate, experienced in another town. I haven't had anybody really, any other applicants for the position. I did call down to call Doug Miner, who's the town clerk down there, just to ask, just to make sure we weren't, stealing somebody and poaching, and he understands that, she'd be working part-time, and he may have been a little surprised that she was looking, but, I was gonna call her up and double check and see, depending on how things went, and see how interested she is still, and see if she's still interested in the job, and then come back and do a vote. I know that, because today was the last day that I was going to post for the meeting, for that position.
And there hasn't been,
No,
not that I really expected it.
No.
Apparently, okay.
not really.
And what did Doug say about her performance thus far?
So she's good. She learned, she's, interested in the position, and it's kind of how she was with us during the interview. And she, very interested in learning and understanding the position and all. So I think he was just a little surprised she was looking at something else. So, but
Part-time
it's part-time. It's
Yeah.
part-time work. Mike, I just wanted to be certain that, because the town clerk has to be here for the election, and making sure that that's okay. So,
Gary sat in on the interview too.
Yeah, Gary Shaw.
They,
He was pretty supportive when I
yeah,
talked to him.
yeah, he was, because she knows the software that they use, and
Yep.
so it wouldn't be a learning curve.
Yeah.
Oops.
Here we go.
Stop it? Oh,
Yeah.
that's fine.
There we go. Just wait to see.
Yep.
Okay, so we're still waiting on that, you're gonna reach out to her.
Yeah.
It sounds like she's a very viable candidate.
Yep.
And you'll be back to us next week?
Yep.
Okay. Bidwell House letter of support for Mass Historical Commission Development Grant.
Not ready yet, needs to be tabled till next week.
Okay. Personnel policies rewrite, yay, everybody's favorite.
Well, I didn't get through them all, so I think we should take a chunk to find which ones we're gonna do.
That's fine, that's what I expected, and.
So
it's
I
fine
did
by-
that, Frank. I just did part 1.
Okay, all right, I did some of them, but not all of them. I prefer that we come back to that.
You wanna do
Yeah.
any today, or do you wanna start with the ones you did?
But if I could bring them up, I had them, I downloaded them, there's so many of them. Single.
Really? I hadn't noticed that.
Yeah, I mean, who did this? I mean, God, I was like,
So
I
I
know.
sent,
You're not done yet, I'm like,
I
What?
sent my edits to part 1 along to Susan and Roger just at the beginning of the meeting. So,
oh,
I guess, should we just say that we'll do part 1 next week, or part 1 and 2?
yeah, let's do that. Let's do
My
part
question
one.
is, Susan, if you take all the policies, do you think there would be like 6 parts?
That's a loaded question.
that would depend on how many I put in each part, right? Give me 1 second to look through.
Because if you told me there's going to be 6 parts and it's going to be 6 more weeks, then that's fine, but it'd be good to
Hang on.
try to get this
I'm looking
done.
at how many are left.
Yeah.
There's 25 more, it might be 22, because some of them I think are ones that I've already looked at and did them out of order, but just going alphabetically past the ones that I know we've done, there's somewhere between 22 and 25 more policies.
Beyond what you sent already?
Oh, yeah.
So
Um,
that would be like 2 or 3 more parts, right?
Well, I think I was sending somewhere between 6 and 8 per part, so yes.
So we'll say 3 more parts, and you sent 3 parts, so it'll be 6 parts. Maybe we'll try to tackle 1 per week for the next 6 weeks,
Okay.
Okay,
and we'll start with
That's-
part 1 next week.
okay.
Justin, you made the changes you saw on the one that, Susan sent out? Then you
Yeah.
just sent- Mhm. Okay.
I have one overarching question.
Mhm.
In the policies, we're frequently referring people to their department head, and I'm wondering if immediate supervisor is more universal, in the sense that if you are a department head, you might be going to the town administrator, and if you're the town administrator, you might be going to the select board, and just maybe there are employees whose supervisor is not a department head, so to speak. So I'm
That is
wondering,
a good point.
and in some cases, it's always going to be a department head, but I just wonder if we might sometimes replace department head with just supervisor, immediate supervisor.
Yeah, I mean, I see your point, it is more general, and
It's
therefore
more
covers
general
more
too, it's like
people.
Pete's filling in.
Right.
He'd be more of a supervisor than a department head.
Yeah, I like the concept, and Mickey's also nodding. So, yeah, okay, and that doesn't strike me as a really hard one to fix.
No, I think it's just a question of, do you go ahead and do that before you send them to us so that there's fewer?
I will go ahead and, that is a good question. I will certainly do it with the other ones. Do you want me to go ahead and redo I won't do the batch you already sent me, but the other 2 batches, do you want me to redo them and resend them?
Yeah, it's up to you. Also, I didn't look at every single instance. It's possible that there are times where department head does make sense. So, but if
I
someone,
won't do a global replace, I'll do a ask me every time.
yeah, I think that would be good if you could, as long as we're kind of in general agreement that that does make sense.
I think it does. And,
Okay.
thank you, and I really appreciate it, cause I feel like there will be things that I didn't think of. And it's really helpful to have feedback from you guys as well, because you often see or think about things that I wouldn't have thought about, and it's useful. I'm going with the 3 minds are better than 1 on this one, 4 actually, cause I'll include Roger in that, but you know.
Do 3.5.
Yeah.
Struggling sometimes to be there these days.
I know, there's a lot. Okay.
Policies, put me to sleep.
Tell me about it. Oh my god. I'm just making a note.
And we'll do part 1 next week, just to clarify.
Yeah,
Okay. All right. Sorry, I gotta get back to the agenda.
Pilot.
Update on pilot, yeah.
So I can update you all. Nothing very exciting. I met with Hume over the weekend, and it's a work in progress. They appreciate everything that the town offers in terms of emergency services and the roads, but it's, I'm going to keep talking to them and see if they're willing to make some kind of a pilot payment. I think they're a little bit scared of the idea of, committing to a long-term high dollar figure. And they're a relatively young camp. You know, they haven't been around for decades or generations. They've only been in Monterey for so long, and they're figuring out their business plan. And so I think they're a little bit leery of it for that reason, but they do appreciate the town, and I think it's going to be a work in progress. So I'm still gathering figures. I got stuff from the police department, the fire department, just about calls to Hume, and I'm going to get back to them with some more figures. They had questions during our meeting specifically about, I guess some towns, if they have a fire district, split out just the cost for the fire department. So they had questions like that. Would there be any way to split out the cost for basically the fire department? And I thought that was a very reasonable question. So I'm working on getting them some information, but it's a work in progress with Hume.
Can I throw out that the wear and tear their operation puts on that very small road is very significant, far in excess of any other resident on that road. And while I totally see their point about the use of emergency services, I by no means think that's the limit of the service the town is providing them, or the burden that they are putting on the town's services, because maintaining that road is a big undertaking. And if we need to upgrade the road to accommodate the RV traffic, that's an enormous undertaking. And that RV traffic is going to degrade the road. It's a predictable result of heavy traffic by heavy vehicles. So from my perspective, proactively, I think that may be, it's probably not that hard for us to document their use of emergency services. It's a lot harder to come up with a number for that. But if we have to widen that road, if we have to pave that road, we're talking millions of dollars.
Yeah, I think I put an email out to DPW about that, but with Jim being out, I wasn't really expecting
Yep.
Anything concrete. I have putting together some numbers for them. I did include highway operations and highway compensation, and it's definitely part of the conversation.
Maybe also put in there the figure of what we had to pay to fix Beartown Mountain Road. What the
Yeah.
cost of that road project was, because that gives them a pretty up-to-date view of what fixing a length of road will cost.
Mm-hmm.
But that's a gravel road up there, isn't it?
So was Beartown Mountain.
Oh, down up there.
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
Because I don't think I'm talking pie in the sky, I think I'm talking predictable expense. It's just a question of when.
All right, well, I'll get back to them.
Know it. It's just nobody likes it, right? It's like knowing you need to regrade and pave your driveway, but not wanting to do it because the price tag is high. So, anyway. Wow, we got through all that business in half an hour?
Oh, geez.
Okay, how about I give you a little briefing on today's adventure at the EMS task force meeting?
Yep.
Oh, I have one answer to a question Frank asked a while back, which is, the fire department, the firefighter app has, over 12,000 job alert participants, which is a pretty decent pool. It's not hundreds of thousands, but there aren't hundreds of thousands of firefighters in this region, so. I think that's a pretty good pool, and it's probably a more appropriate pool than what we get from just putting it out on Indeed. I'd kind of like to see us, I know it's not on today's agenda unless we bring it up at the finance committee joint meeting, but I'd kind of like to see us proceed with letting them go forward with it, because if we're gonna hire those people, we need to
Right.
put it out there. Okay. So I was at the Southern Berkshire EMS Task Force today. It was interesting. It was well attended. There were people from a lot of towns. Notably, no one from Sheffield governance was there. The appointed lead person is the police chief, who did not come. I don't know what his other burden was today, but the person who showed up on behalf of Pittsfield was of Sheffield, was a lovely woman, but she's a volunteer with the Friends of the Library. Yeah, so that gives you a little idea of where Sheffield stands on their commitment. Maybe I'm being unkind, but I don't think I'm being inaccurate. So their reasoning when I raised why this should be joint fire department, fire and emergency medical, it's emergency services, it should be under one umbrella. The response I got back was that, yeah, this was from Smitty, who, Lee Davis was also there. Smitty's response was that, well, they tried that in 2018 and they had a big project that would have combined them both. And there was so much pushback from fire departments at the time that I think he basically judged it not politically tenable. I don't think it's that he doesn't recognize it's the wise direction, it's that he thinks there's too much resistance, and that in this moment, there's legislative move to recognize ambulance as a, oh my God, I just lost the word.
Emergency.
As an essential service, which, come on, duh, yes, it's an essential service. And that would result in more of a pool of money for providing it. And then basically he said, well, ambulance is an emergent need now and fire department will be in the future. And I put it right out there, I'm like, I'm sorry, but I can't agree with you, right? Most of the small towns are down to barely any volunteers. We're in a crisis situation, and to prove it, there are 4 and 7 people enrolled in the 2 classes at firefighter school for the entire of Massachusetts, excluding Boston. And even the people in the fire service were surprised, like everyone, and the fire people are all nodding, but looking kind of surprised. And Lee Davis actually asked me later how I knew that, and I said, because my fire chief told me, because he knows it. And she's like, oh. So it like convincing them that it's emergent seems part of the lift. I did get them to agree to include fire budget and fire facilities on the questionnaire they're sending out to the 14 towns, because they do see that, it's certainly the Collins Center people see that it's related and that it's an important part of looking at it. I also urge them, and they definitely heard it, that they need to make sure that the GIS portion that looks at roads and response time is realistic about the quality of the roads, and the fact that it's on Google Maps does not mean it's a road that's passable for a fire engine or an ambulance. And numerous stakeholders nodded, laughed, and were like, yeah. And I said, this happened with the regional school district, and again, everybody's nodding yes. So they get that point. Whether they can follow through on it remains to be seen. It was mentioned in the room several times that COVID really did change a lot, but I think looking at the emails we got back from Otis in New Marlboro, even though all of that is true, I still think that it's difficult for people to face the reality of what all of this means. Both the financial, but there's a financial piece for sure, but I think there's also a strong emotional piece about 100 years of volunteer history and difficulty recognizing the truth of the fact that that foundation isn't here anymore. And relying on a foundation that doesn't exist gives you a crumbling house. So that's kind of, I think they are committed to going forth primarily with focused on EMS. That may re-entrench the existing EMS services. They are also giving a priority to education and training because they recognize we have no pipeline. I think that's good because that is definitely a need. I signed up for the governance and assessment committee and the staffing committee, subcommittees, whatever. Because, Smitty's up there saying, don't just use the number of calls because it's variable. And I'm like, yes, and please also don't just use EQV. We didn't do that with schools and we shouldn't be doing it with any other service because it's not an accurate or reasonable way to assess people. Smitty looked uncomfortable. There were a lot of other people who understood what I was saying. I think that Southern Berkshire will be right there saying it's the easiest thing to do. We should just continue to do it just like they have been. But I don't know where that leaves us. But that's basically it.
So when's the next meeting? Is it quarterly?
No, they're gonna be monthly, but so end of March.
Mhm.
They're giving a few extra weeks because they wanted to get the surveys out.
Who's the survey is going to, just the?
It's gonna go to all the 14 towns that are now signed on, and basically whoever is the point person for that town is responsible for figuring out who in the town needs to fill it out. And I suspect it's gonna be kind of a joint operation between, you, me, and the fire chief and deputy chief. Also, apparently the regional emergency planning board, task force, I'm not really sure what their proper title is. We're supposed to have a representative and no one's been really showing up at the meetings. I thought Brian was doing it.
I can find out. I know there's a budget item, there's a line item.
Yeah, we pay
Yeah.
into it. Gareth used to go because, he was the only cop we had.
Find out.
My brain just left me. Heather Barbieri, who is chairing it, also sits on that, and she said, she thinks Brian was at one meeting and Sean was at one meeting, but typically we don't have anyone representing Monterey. I don't really know exactly what they actually accomplish at those meetings, but we have to figure out who should be going and send somebody.
I'll reach out, I'll talk to Brian, see what he says.
So, any other questions, guys?
No.
That might have been more than you wanted, but I thought you deserved to be filled in. Go ahead.
Hi,
You wanna
Susan.
do minutes? Hi, Mary, what's up?
Hi. I just wanted to interject that I saw today online that the Sheffield Police had to respond to SBRSD because there was a threat and they had to investigate if it was real. And
Yes, I heard about that.
So that may be why Sheffield
Yeah,
wasn't represented by the police
yes,
chief.
and that-
Gotcha.
that's- thank you.
That's true, I did hear about that.
That actually makes me feel better, Mary, so thank you. Do we wanna do the minutes?
Well, you wanna do the updates and then do the minutes?
That was, Senor.
It's really-
TA updates.
This is really, most of the updates have to do with, just hiring and all that. Of course, we have Annabelle with us now. Community Center has Chris Gannon. He's a citizen here in town. He, started this week. I think he was meeting with Lori today, and then was going to they had a meeting tomorrow. The Community Center, committee, he was gonna meet there. Conservation Commission hired Shannon Poulin. They voted on that, and she just finished up her onboarding paperwork. We're just waiting for it to roll over into time and attendance. and
Is she
do
an
all these-
experienced agent or is she coming to it new?
She is more from what I'm gathering, talking to Noel and a couple other people, is she's on the administrative side. She's working for several towns right now. She's also working with Mark Stinson, who's the Mass DEP rep who always shows up at Concom meetings. And so she's working with him, mentoring, I guess is their term they use, because she is trying to become a full-fledged certified Conservation Commission agent. So she's
Okay.
technically not, she's not at the same level that Kim was, but administratively, she is able to do some things and do help on the administrative side. And I think she's in Egremont or something like that too. She really helped them get organized with their paperwork and digitize things.
Okay.
So that's what, it's kind of where she is right now as an employee for them. Yeah, and we talked about the town clerk and, that's kind of where we are for updates right now. It's getting there. And Laura Worth she's been doing work for the, for the highway department. That's going really well too. She's being kept up with all their invoicing. She's been working on Chapter 90, on a couple of older projects that need to be finalized, and she'll be working on a new project that's coming up too. So that'll all set up and taken care of. Well, good. We're getting there.
Gentlemen, you got any other updates? Do we wanna do minutes if there's nothing else?
You said, I saw you sent yours, I went through the minutes he distributed, except for the one he sent at 4:44, which I didn't go through.
So,
What is it,
well, there's the 122 minutes, which was the first one,
yeah.
January 22nd. I had some pretty small
I opened
changes.
them up here a second ago. We had the 28th, the 22nd, and
I only have 22nd and the 28th. I didn't get through the third one.
I didn't
If there
see
was
it
a
till now.
Was it? I didn't.
He just sent it.
That's because he sends them like 2 minutes before meeting. So my edits are pretty small. I think I removed the word that twice.
I saw you, and it was nothing.
Made combing into combining, which is I think what you meant there, and added except for town administrator leave to the last sentence of discuss personnel policies rewrite as available.
Yeah, that all sounds good to me.
Alright,
Looking at-
so I will move that we approve the minutes of 1/22/25 as amended.
I second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Yes.
Okay. Did you get to the 128, Frank?
Yes, I did.
Okay, so,
We already do 115.
did we do 150?
It's on the list for approved minutes,
Yeah, there is.
but I think that might have been last week.
Did we do 115, Justin?
We haven't approved it yet.
Hey, we, don't know.
Wait.
Well, we brought it up, but we didn't do it last week.
Aha. So, get out mine, so I guess should we do 115 then, if we can? Open it up. The sheer number of select board folders on my computer is sort of staggering at this point. So, you know what? I did not look at the 115, which I only know because it's not on my computer.
Okay.
So can we do 128 and we'll do 115 next week? I apologize, gentlemen, I must not have downloaded it for some reason.
Is it doing anything else?
So I don't know that I had anything on the,
I didn't have that.
I don't think I had a single thing on 128. They look pretty clean, senor.
Don't do spelling.
So I move we approve the 128-25 minutes
I second the motion
as written.
as written.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Yes.
All right. So 1:15 we will do next week. And whatever, I guess it was a February one you got to. I guess that's an advantage of being sick, Justin. I don't even want to say that for you. I can't believe you're doing minutes while you're ill.
I actually got a jump on minutes before I got sick, and I would have been more ahead of them had I not been. I didn't. Yesterday, when I knew I was going to be sick for the day, I was like, oh, I can be productive. And I didn't do a single thing. I was just wiped out. It was not good.
That's called
I
being
felt-
sick. That's really sick. That is called being sick. Okay. That's all I've got so far. We have, why don't you join us up here, Jeff?
Okay.
Instead of settling back there, settle up here.
I'll leave my stuff. We have plenty of seats, right?
Frank, take your.
Yeah, is that it?
How are you, everybody?
There you go.
I'm all right. How are you, Roger, Susan?
Good.
Good.
We actually finished our business early, that's unheard of. We did it at the meeting table all
Well,
of
the
it.
guy who thought he was gonna be late and all confused and was here. Let the
Well, in
minutes- let the
fairness,
minutes
if we had
reflect.
actually done the personnel policies, even one batch of them, we probably wouldn't be finished.
Do we want to end this meeting so we can-
Oh, do I have to close this meeting and open it again, or do we just add them in, Justin?
It's just one meeting. We don't
Yeah,
stop meeting.
they opened theirs, but not till they have a form.
Oh.
All right, on that note, I'm out of here, guys.
Okay.
Thanks,
Thank
thank
you.
you.
Take care.
I'll send some stuff. Thanks, Annabelle.
Have a great night.
You
Bye,
too.
Justin.
Do we, have a end time, estimated end time?
Well, I would hope personally for 7 o'clock, but
That's what I'm hoping for.
historically,
Six-
history has
6:15?
shown that might be unrealistic.
6:15, right? You
Yeah.
gotta set the time. Make sure.
Okay, 6:15. It's
All right,
budget season, woohoo!
You look like you're dressed for it.
Freezing. Blood's gonna kill me. Opposite of menopause.
Post-menopausal, post.
Oh, I gotta sit closer to Roger, he's got slides. Susan, it wasn't them. They don't,
I could
One
have sworn
Berkshire,
I saw
don't do
that it was
anything
one
like that.
Berkshire that underwrote.
but they gave me
Bummer.
some leads,
Okay,
and you saw, yeah,
who
the
was it? Cause somebody,
Berkshire Community College, BCC.
no, somebody paid for it to be at Berkshire Community College, according to what was
Oh,
on the
maybe Berkshire Taconic, he gave me the lead there. too.
Okay, I could have sworn it. said-
Maybe Berkshire Taconic, he said.
Weather coming.
How was your meeting, good?
Yeah, we do.
I don't know.
know today, but.
It's complicated, and I don't know. Maybe it's good, I'm not sure.
How are you,
This
Vicky?
weekend.
I spent the week in Tulsa. I
So, yeah, we are recording.
don't, what's happening, sir?
Oh, ours hasn't ended yet.
Oh!
We're just waiting.
I didn't know you were in a meeting. I'm sorry.
They finished
Whoop.
early.
We
Wait,
finished early. We're
whoops,
just-
whoops.
They finished early.
We're still recording.
I don't care, I was in Tulsa, I had a good week.
All right. That's what you keep, sure.
What was I gonna say? I was in Tulsa with, believe me, I wasn't with anyone. But I had a great week, and you will hear more about it. Matt Meyer, he gave me the name,
No,
man.
look at the last
Yeah,
paragraph.
next Monday.
On Massachusetts, exactly what the labor market. was.
53
Yes, that is
This
Mass
weekend, like 10 inches.
higher and gets the money from that.
Skip that.
So he
one.
gave me-
The previous one wasn't.
He gave me the kind, so he's gonna make all the introductions, so it's not like just we're asking.
Okay,
I thought that was a good way to do it, right?
yeah, that is.
So, but it's not funny, you like it, that
Some
you
is
like,
nice.
no.
That's occasionally at 30 miles an hour.
Where's,
So the first
Okay,
6,
you
however,
like
were paid for by somebody else, it wasn't this way.
Well,
And I don't know.
I
Let's
think,
see.
I think.
Sunday.
And then
there's a
Monday-
really good
Monday,
argument
17
also for
March,
purchase
too.
chronic,
Wednesday,
because they've been doing more and more on
Tuesday,
the
the
New York
same
side
thing.
and less
Oh,
and less
sorry.
on
Well,
the
if you can,
Berkshire side, I think.
glance over at my house
Who
every
has
once in a
one
while, make sure the roof is
Berkshire?
on.
Yeah, I will, I will.
Okay. This is a
Somehow,
workforce
one day
economic
Scott came
development
over, Scott
issue, right?
Jensen.
And I really
Wow,
think
guy.
if we're going
I
to
told him
time, we should
about
make the
that,
rounds to
he
be
did not go
elected,
over
to
my
tell
fence.
them what we need.
He
I
did?
think they should be,
The first
oh, and Roger,
section.
I invite Roger to a
Well, one
meeting.
time
and
last
he-
He
year-
drives like that.
Tom Marsh,
For the
you
year.
know,
Have you ever seen
works
him drive?
regional planning.
Me.
We
It's
didn't
just
know
that
that.
it takes him
Because
5
he
seconds.
used
I
to
know,
start
but
with
it's
seasonal
like-
task force.
Messed up.
You know, and I reached out to him, because I've done some work in Berkshire.
But one
and I know
time
it
he
very well.
accidentally
And,
pushed the snow against the
and
faucet on the
he
side of the house.
People let the town board
Let
come
it
and say,
dry
oh,
away.
we want to talk,
Turned it
we
on.
need help.
Yeah, I remember you
I
told me
laid it
that.
out.
I checked it on.
You know, I said,
That's
"Oh,
right.
maybe we need
Work
people
pouring
to
out
change
your
their backflow. I'm like,
I'm like,
maybe.
"Turn it off." I said, thank you.
So he,
Yeah,
well,
you would
you
have- I
gotta
see
get
it right
those,
in the back.
that,
Could also
it's
run
his
the well
idea,
truck.
I told him,
Burn
Well, that's true
data,
too.
the seasonal, because my theory can be wrong.
The next 10 days.
The time in our lives, the second
I'm going to
home
Florida.
loans subsidized
Brothers
the
and
town.
I.
When we were like 400.
My brother, you know, he broke all his ribs. He's walked 3 miles in the house.
300. Now that we're 500,
So don't really-
when they come with a band of.
My son said they had 6 inches of snow in Maryland.
We have to staff actually for the larger weekends, a lot. So we're actually paying for services or even have to bring someone seasonally because we don't have that according to the budget. And that's, I think, that's the ongoing period. That's how much more equipment. So if you can get those numbers and we can get them from the other towns, we might be able to get, if they actually show something, if not, we'll regroup. We actually might be able to get supplemental funding for those things.
Possibly, yeah, I'll get some numbers.
Right, you have the list. You want me to send it again?
Yeah, could you send it to me again? Because we have 1,000, ours, we're about 1,000, a little over 1,000
Oh,
population.
that's not the number we need. You remember
I
the
know, but you
number?
were doing, you said 500.
This is incidents by month.
I said 500 and 500
For what, what is that?
for full-time, part-time.
No.
What do we have?
It's more like.
It's more like 1,000, 3,000.
Full-time.
We have 1,000 full-timers and then another 3,000 or 2,000 or 3,000
That's
part-timers
it?
come
It's
in.
really changed that much?
Come in.
The thing is that it's the number of households, right? But households aren't one person.
Wait, just stop a minute. The town used to be almost equally split between full-time and part-time.
It's about 68% part-timers now.
So that's even more than my argument, so let's figure that out. And that swing is huge, and we have to staff to that or year. I think that's a really brilliant argument, if I say so myself.
But those are numbers,
So does-
each column is showing you number of incidents a month.
So it
for-
does,
for
I
fire.
can eyeball it and say it supports it.
Well, there's quite a few in the room.
January, that's the week that people hear both the New Year's and then Martin Luther King is in
December,
January,
January.
right? Then you got nothing going on in March and April, nothing in May, and then back up to 20. Eyeball,
Send it to you.
but eyeballing it, I see it.
Yeah.
When you say you're like January, I'm like, no, I can explain January. That's a big week, you can't even get into the movies in January. You get a coffee for 3 hours. Lose my mind. I'm telling you, I'm in a rare place. I had such a good time in Tulsa that I am on a whole different planet now.
Oklahoma.
Oh, yeah.
Alright.
I'll just give you know the headline? Do you know what I did there? I filmed a reality TV show.
Get out.
Filmed it or you were?
Are you kidding? I was a cast member.
Oh, really?
I did
Seriously?
that
Okay,
once
you
too.
can tell us about this after the meeting because this
I'm just
sounds
telling you, that's why I'm on a high. It was so much fun.
Okie dokie.
I did one once too, and it totally turned me off to reality TV.
I know. Let me just preface this site by saying I've never watched any reality TV ever, and I don't plan to.
You're not gonna watch your episode?
Oh, I'm gonna watch that.
I did one in Boston.
What'd you
You
do?
did?
It was a a Boston family. They did it about a Boston family. The guy who was the production assistant was a friend of my daughter's, and so they needed people to fill a bar. So we went into a bar, sat in the bar for a whole day.
Oh, that's being an extra, that's very different.
No,
than
yeah,
being a
excuse me.
contestant. I've been an extra, I'm in so many scenes of Sex Lives of
Did you like
HBO girls,
American Ninja or something like
sex
that?
girls, of college girls, you know, that was.
Remember,
Sex
this
Lives
is
of
being
College-
recorded.
It's being recorded.
It's fine, it's on HBO, Sex Lives of College Girls, I'm an extra. I'm a professor.
A professor. Not to change the topic or anything, but is
Why don't you change
is
the
Steve,
topic?
coming? He
Should-
said he was.
Well, why don't we start at 6? We'll give him a couple minutes.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
I think we'll call our meeting to order at 6.
I'm
He
fine
had
with
the
that, but he
longest
wasn't
distance to
coming,
come.
I'd say we
Oh,
did.
let's make sure it's okay.
Monterey.
Take a sled ride down the hill, right?
This was pretty funny at the meeting today. She had everyone introduce themselves,
This
And
was
say-
retreating the
Berkshire,
Berkshire,
Southern
yeah.
Berkshire EMS, what their preferred favorite drink was. And the first few, of course, all start out with like coffee, seltzer,
by the
coffee.
time they got to you,
Yeah,
it was
No,
double
no, I
martini.
was like the third one, and I said mocha, and she said hot or ice, and I said yes. Everybody, and then it goes, coffee, how do you like it black with, it goes around the thing. Finally, we get to somebody who says, well, coffee, if we're just talking about the workday. And you can see where that's going, and I started watching go like, beer. Yep, it was an ale, a very specific ale. And then it goes a couple more down, and I look at the person, I'm like, Scotch or bourbon? Bourbon. I'm like, I was predicting it. The next one fell off the train and was martini, and it just went down from there. It was apparently a bourbon milkshake. I don't know. And then it became like day drink, night drink. So it was an interesting group of people.
That's
It
an
did
interesting
take-
icebreaker.
You should have a meeting in bars, am I
It took like a little over half of the table before they fell down the after work slope.
Today is 2:12.
It is.
And are
It
you
is an
guys
interesting
taking, minutes?
No,
No,
we
I do.
never take minutes. We don't believe in minutes. I mean,
That's what I was worried about.
They have remote minutes.
Before you got in, we had voted you the official minutes.
I don't think it's happening, but I'll try. Wait. Remember that whole thing
Well, if you can
about,
do reality
it's not the
TV
opinions
or
of
whatever.
Eileen? It might be the opinions of Eileen if you let me take a minute. So I'd be careful about that.
They have remote minutes. Justin's ill, and he's doing.
Oh, so Justin's listening.
He's listening.
I could have sat in the comfy chair.
comfy chair.
Could have sat in the big boss chair. Where am I looking for finance? Draft minutes. So really, you guys don't have a minute taker?
But
Justin
Justin.
typically does the minutes, and he often does them from the recording, but he takes notes, and he does really good minutes as
He
opposed to
does.
my 18-page
Well, that's what I'm
minutes,
saying.
so.
I write decent minutes for us.
Some typo.
I said decent minutes.
Decent.
if the typo's the only problem, that's pretty damn good. in my opinion.
Yeah, typos and verb tense, not my fault.
Yeah, neither nor periods or punctuations.
Yeah, inventive punctuation, but the content I usually get about right.
I did okay with the open
That's-
space meetings,
Oh, yeah.
but that's because they didn't need, the number of topics was much smaller.
I'm so sorry, my back is to Justin.
You wanna sit in the hot
Who's
seat?
R? Oh, that's you.
Roger, you're gonna,
I
you don't have your camera on.
Roger's here twice.
So
Okay,
it's
then
6:01, so we wait for Steve, or do you guys wanna?
I would
I think we
Six
gotta
o'clock.
start, we got a lot to talk
Okay.
about.
We do.
I will call Eileen Marcus, Chair of the Finance Committee, and I will call the Finance Committee meeting to order.
Said he's there from the finance.
All
Here
right.
he comes. I hear
Susan.
him. This is like this under the table.
So-
Shuffle.
What is first up with
Oh,
this?
so you don't have to call your meeting. to
Well,
order.
we
No,
have
we're
on the
already
agenda
in our
item,
meeting.
we had the finance to discuss fire department staffing, cost of living
Yep.
adjustment, COLA, and the 26
But
budget.
I'm gonna suggest that we do cost of living first.
Yes.
Because
good idea.
it's simpler, more straightforward, and has a lot of general implications for all the departments. So,
So I did have, I sent out that email with the spreadsheet on it that had all the different departments and everything. I have it in printed form and it's up here on the,
How many
Oh,
do you
I'd
have
love to
printed?
see
there's 8 of them, so if you wanna look at
I don't think.
them.
You happen to have an extra for the ordinance?
Yep, this should be one for the audience.
Thank you.
I knew at least one person was probably gonna be here.
So where am I, let's see, oh, I see.
So I didn't make any adjustments, that's just straight, that's a,
Oh, good, because I didn't, you
Yay.
just called the meeting to order.
Hey, Steve.
my traffic was terrible.
That's a problem.
I know,
parking,
the
really bad.
snowflake,
Oh,
parking
parking.
wasn't bad, there were a lot of cars.
I have some new business about the traffic. You know, we really- Always
I
get
had
a
to park
kick when you
really
go,
far from the meeting today, like. way
shows
away.
the map and the traffic's not every.
Tell us what this shows us.
So this is just straight off the, there's no adjustments made to this is
There's no
essentially,
COLA engine.
there's no COLA entered at all. So I didn't wanna do that, I just was printing off so you could have it.
And what is that number of top names, why did you write that?
So the FY 26 requested total right now equals 5 appropriated, so if I could look at that.
Right, with a COLA of,
So there's a percentage increase, and so there's a COLA modifier that is basically connected to all the COLAs as it goes down through, like on the spreadsheet. So for example, if I were to come up
I
here.
didn't get that.
Here, hold on, let me,
Just, without the COLA is, are those two
This is
equal?
without the COLA. because
So
both
what does
equal.
that COLA column do?
If I adjust up here at the top, see at the very top?
Yeah,
there?
that was the whole idea, we could do COLAs together, so we
Yeah.
don't have to do everything.
So if I just put a 1.025.
I just didn't understand why you put that range,
Which range?
1 to 2.5.
No, I said 1.025 equals 2.5%.
Perfect, that's why you put the range, oh, so that's brilliant, that was my
It's
question.
just-
So you're saying four, so what you're saying is 4 equals 6 point something, is that what you're saying?
What's that?
If a 1,
So a one is a one, right? So a one, so if you took 300, like if you took $390.79, multiplied it times one, it equals $390.79. But if I come up here to this multiplier and I enter 1.025,
plus
which is
us,
2.5%,
it costs us
it actually changes everything all the way
by,
down through.
right, well, that's what we wanted, is automatic COLA calculation,
So that
hallelujah.
would raise
Amen.
it from FY 25, FY 26.
So we go up about
This-
$3,000.
But you can also come down through here if you wanted to and put your own multipliers in here, or just put it down. So there's
No, I
notes,
like it.
so there's notes along the side that are from the FY 25 budget. It's hard to see in here, I can't print 11 by
Why is the
17.
assessor's assistant locked in at one?
I don't know.
And because it's a principal assessor's assistant, it's locked in at 1 because it was.
Oh,
it's a
right,
dollar.
right.
Right, we know salary there,
Yeah,
yeah.
so it was taken out. Anything that was a dollar,
Right,
like. was-
Totally get it, yep.
I just made it so it stays the same. So theoretically, you could come down here, if you wanted to, you could take this number and manually put in a change. So for example, the police department is looking for a 5% increase. Very good, so I just passed it.
Well, one thing I have to say
So
we're a
you
mess,
put
and
that
it's my fault. which I don't feel. Usually the finance committee does a recommendation for you, that's our job, but we didn't actually do our analysis, looking at social security, other corporations. I mean, it's very quick, we can do it. But we usually do that kind of thing and then make a
We
recommendation.
can do it maybe next meeting, where we're meeting before the.
Well, you kind of, do you need it now, or the only person that needs, oh, sorry.
I don't think it would be nice to have.
I mean, it'd be nice to have, oh, definitely be nice to
So
have.
SSI, social security is at 2.5, and the 2024 consumer price index
Yeah,
is
she's doing it for us.
2.91%.
Okay, so social security is at 2.5%.
5, which is why he had that.
Right, and consumer price index,
2.91.
and what's inflation?
That was, at the end of
That's-
the year, it was 2.9% is what they said.
Right, and the only thing I'm gonna add to this about tying to those numbers is that we were using that COLA to help us increase salaries. You know, maybe a little more than just tying it to that, by trying to do a little better, since our salaries, a lot of us started very depressed. So, that's the only recommendation I'd say on those low numbers. that if we're gonna make, because since we don't give any, raises on bonus or anything, it's the only way we have of inching up our salary pool.
So,
So do you guys wanna have a little head
You wanna
ahead
have powwow
about
on it?
what you're,
And think about it and
what you would recommend to the select board?
I think we need a separate, it seems like we're all gonna be on the same page.
which will be what?
I think we need to have a separate.
But what are
discussion
you
to vote
thinking?
directly. It just adds more time to the.
Slightly
process.
above, like up at the 3 or 3 point, what are you thinking? If it's 2.9, 2.9, 2.5, I'd like to do a little better for that reason I said, of starting to get our salary base out and putting the money in
What do you
there.
think about 3.25 or 3.5?
I like it.
last year we did 4.
Yeah,
So-
but last year, those numbers were much higher. They were all like, I can look at the analysis, but same thing. We did about 3/4 percentage point above.
We also have to be sensitive to the other proposals that we have that may add a tremendous amount to our budget.
Right, which is
By
why I
necessity, you know.
Yes.
right, but that is why I'd like to stake a claim for all the employees and not just those departments.
Right, no, right, yeah.
Yeah.
But we have to be sensitive to the bottom line of the expense part of the budget.
So you wanna, finance committee, you wanna preliminary say something like 3 point something, what do you think?
Well,
Or look at it, or
I
you-
thought 3 would be in excess of the national,
Yeah, but
was the 2.91, was that the state recommended?
That was-
2.91 is the consumer, US consumer price index.
I
for
don't usually
2024.
use the social security number.
It's
that's
2.5.
2.5. We did that the first few years, but we've been going above because now in this economic downturn, they've been below and
We
we're
got a lot
trying,
of retired people in town that got 2.5.
right, but
Well, if we went with 3, it's still better than what people saw live on social security.
and what do you think? You would go a little higher?
I don't know how much of an ultimate difference it makes in somebody's paycheck. Or I think for me, I'd rather see the whole bottom line. And if we felt like we have some room, I'm more than happy to push it up. As we start to get closer to a projected numbers for the warrant. We're not gonna do that tonight necessarily, but as we get closer, to then kind of keep in our back pocket the option of saying, gee, the numbers are making sense, it feels reasonable for the town, and can we give a little bit more? We don't have to
Yeah.
decide it tonight before we've even really looked at the rest
So
of it.
we'll start at 3, but I personally would like to see that number higher to help us with the depressed
I think
salaries.
it all
and-
depends on what it looks like at the bottom line as we get closer.
Right,
We're not locked into whatever we choose tonight
all right,
anyway, but
So we can start with a tentative number of 3, and then see where that takes us. But let's make sure we revisit it before we lock down on the budget.
Yeah, and there are some, I mean, that's at 3, but
well, why did Brian ask for 5?
He asked for 5 because,
The salary,
for the 2 full-time officers, so
because,
they're on the low end of the numbers.
trying to get them up to.
and I think that everyone is, that's my
we're
point.
trying to stay competitive.
That's my point, I think if that's the one place. So, just tell me the difference between 3 and 5 right now for the whole budget?
3 and 5%.
Yeah, if we went to 3, that would cost us how
Well,
much?
just a straight 3%, it's 41,113.
40,
1,000,
I love this, Roger.
114. we'll
Right,
round up.
and 5% would be,
Would be 68,523.
that's a huge difference.
Yeah,
2%.
But
No, but in the past,
No, I know.
that difference was
Yeah.
not, and then just do 4% for placating. Since I don't do the math anymore.
53, I guess.
54,818. But some of that though, because we have to
Yeah,
go down and look through, because like, for example, where am I here? The school committee, the community center, the council on aging is looking for additional dollars, for bringing up their, I have to put that note in. They're looking to, the community center is looking to they're requesting 17,000. They want an increase of 15 hours a week plus a $22 an hour increase, which is actually a 5.4% increase from where they're at now, which is
So police is
$20.
asking for 5%, community center,
Looking for a 5.4% increase
5.4%.
on the.
And what's the other one? And there's one other.
There was the other one. Let's see.
There's definitely-
Roger, I have a question about your spreadsheet when you have a minute.
Yep. I'm just looking for the.
When it says holiday time, I
That's
thought,
very confusing. Yeah, go ahead, I'm sorry.
I thought if someone was getting paid holiday pay, then they're not making up those hours.
It's very confusing. That's a note that came off the FY24 budget sheet. I didn't do that. I don't quite understand how that was working, and especially specific to any policies that we might have for vacation, or for holiday. My understanding with holiday pay is that you only get holiday pay if you are scheduled for a holiday. So if you have a office hours on a holiday, you don't come in, you get paid for that day. But if you don't have specific office hours, if you're sort of randomly working through the week, you don't get holiday pay.
Where are you looking at, Justin? The police department?
No, you see it here, like, for example, under community center right
So
there.
you need to check that to make sure that's
So-
calculated.
So Roger,
Right.
there are a few positions that might be more complicated, but for the part-time positions like community center and building commissioner and stuff like that, if they are getting paid for a holiday, then they're not making those hours up. So it shouldn't factor
Right.
into the budget.
It shouldn't. I know. I know. So
If it's-
that's why. Go ahead.
It should be included in our calculation, and it shouldn't be in the note, I don't think.
Well, I was just putting that as those notes are in green are from the FY25 budget. I just brought
Yeah,
them
no,
over.
I get that. I just want to clarify that they're
Yeah.
not factored into the calculation, and then we can remove them from the note, and then we'll just be clear on.
I seem to recall with the community center at the budget meeting that they wanted to include the possibility of the community center director working on a holiday because there was an event on that day. And I think that, I cannot be certain, but it's possible that that's why they had that specifically. Because if there was if you're gonna do something for MLK Day on MLK Day, and that person was there, you would be paying them time and a half because it's a holiday and they're working.
They should do the math to figure it
I-
out.
But the point, I remember when we did the holiday pay, the point was not to pay people for the inconvenience of working on a holiday. The point was, frankly, there was a couple of part-time employees, in particular, the transfer station,
Right.
um,
The library.
and the library staff, and they were not coming in on like Christmas and New Year's, and they weren't getting paid, and they had no opportunity to make the hours up,
Right.
which the transfer station usually does, except if the holiday's on a Saturday, they'll just be open on a Sunday. So they won't make, anyway.
Or we open on a Friday because they're always open on Sunday.
So,
But yeah, so if my understanding is if you are scheduled for a day, like you're always scheduled for that day, and it's a holiday, it's a paid day. But that's my understanding.
That's how it is at the library.
Yeah, so that's why, like I said, there's some notes in there that I have to go back through and will remove. It's because there's some that are like plus 10 hours of holiday pay, and I don't quite understand why they were like this one right here. This is the community center. At one point in time, it was plus 24 hours of holiday time.
Yeah.
I didn't quite understand why that was in there in the budget.
What's that one in red?
Where?
Is the red in the community center, is the red representing this year and the green last year? Or, yes,
You mean the black?
no,
Here?
it's, yes, requested, is that black?
Yeah, it's
It looks
black.
red to me.
Oh, it's
Sorry.
interesting. Yeah, that's what they're requesting. they're requesting $17,688.
So and that's why we need to ask about the 24 hours of holiday time, because my recollection from the
Okay.
meeting.
And that's it was weird because I asked RJ about that. RJ had no idea what was going on. And he was like,
So I might
he
be
was,
worried about that.
and he was, I
We should
don't
clean
even,
that
I don't even come in from.
That's in your notes, Dustin, to clean up?
So I have a different question related to our COLA conversation. Departments that are looking for increased wages because to be competitive in the market. COLA is one way that we increase the wages, but we also could increase the base
Yes.
wage as well. Perhaps coming up, if, let's say we said 3% COLA, I'm not recommending, but let's just as an example, we said 3% COLA, but then there was a department that to have a fair wage for that particular job really needed a 5% because it was lower than reasonable standards, current standards. We could actually do both. We could
Yes, but
Yeah.
it falls-
The
so it
competitiveness.
falls into
Right.
two categories. It falls
Right.
into departments who are staffed and want to retain and fear losing, not being competitive. And it falls into departments who are not
I
staffed,
get that.
and that's what I'm
I'm
saying.
just saying
But
that
I'm just saying, some of them that are staffed, do we have to give that, that's why I'd like to raise the whole thing, but we do have to bifurcate. But then we're gonna get into police versus COA versus this, what is our
all I'm
priority?
saying is we don't have to do it all through COLA.
Which I agree.
I agree,
And
but I'm just saying, we're
historically, we
still
have-
gonna be making those kind of
Yeah,
decisions
it's
on
hard.
what
Very
staff is
difficult.
important to us in the bottom line.
And
Which is why I also argue for making a higher COLA, so that the entire workforce doesn't fall behind
course.
next year.
Right, and that's what's going on at the community center, because the community center's person right now is making $20.80.
Is there a person?
Yes, yeah,
Just,
and just hired.
Oh,
And,
just.
and they're looking for that to be increased to $22 an hour, which on an hourly rate is $5.04 an hour.
Mhm.
Or
4%.
4%. So, yeah, so there's things like that. The same things that's being asked of the council on aging as well. They're
But if the
looking for-
COLA was 3 or 3.5 or 4,
Yeah.
you could make that, the other piece up by increasing the base by
Yep.
1% or 1.5 or
And
whatever.
I think basically doing competitiveness
Right.
increases for the departments
That are
where
low,
the
right.
salaries are lacking and we're concerned about being able to keep employees is an important thing.
Right.
We certainly did it last year, or was it last year or the year before for the highway department?
Both.
I think it was a year.
I think
I
we
think it's
both,
the year before.
but I think we did some more stuff yet last
We
year,
did some
too.
COLA stuff, I don't think we did a lot of competitiveness stuff for the highway department last year. We did for somebody
How
else.
do we know if we're competitive or not?
We look at
By
the
getting-
comparable salaries for other towns
Oh,
nearby.
you can find that out?
Yeah.
So we're not competitive now?
Well, I think on the DPW side, they increased it.
We are.
So-
I think the DPW is.
We did, and I thought we had done that for the police, we gave huge increases in the last 2 years for the police.
Yeah, but I
They
can
keep
only.
on falling behind and behind,
It's because there's no supply.
and then we're gonna have the same thing in fire, that's why.
Well,
And then library, COA, and MCC are always gonna be behind, that, you know what I mean? It's just gonna, that's why I always like to increase as much as we can the entire staff, and then if we have to do. But that's why I always like a bigger COLA, and not when I was in government, but in this instance I do.
You are in government.
No, I'm saying not when I was in municipal, bigger.
Nikki?
So the library we put through at 2.5%, and we thought we were happy with that, that was the cost of living with the social security, and we would have gone with that. But then we had a little caveat, if you're hiring people now, new people, and you're bringing them in at a much higher rate, and we already have experienced people, then you have to that's when you have to
Right.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
We're
but I
always
mean,
gonna-
I don't think you should do it across the board, because sometimes people are already at a good rate, but now if you start bringing people in and you're making $25 an hour and somebody's been there for 10 years and is making 20 or 22, that's,
Especially for the
Okay, so
same
let me
job.
make a recommendation so we can move from this today and discuss it next week. Roger, could you do a separate list of the departments that want raises, what their staff is at, what it comes out to for them? so we could see them at 3% and then what the addition would be.
The,
that the way to move
I'm
forward?
looking at the notes that Brian gave out. He's asking for a 4% increase on the police chief and a 5%.
Yeah, so
But what I think what I talked to him about was trying to get the compare, what are the others paying?
Well, let's
So we have a barometer of what it is, maybe.
He's
we do it
usually
over
pretty
two.
good about
And
providing.
also,
But I haven't seen it.
let's
We
also
talked
put,
about it in the meeting.
let's also put longevity in there. Is the position open, closed, and how long, given what just happened with the RJ position?
But
Right, so like someone might be, well, not for, but that matters for like the council on aging, like they don't wanna lose this person. But I think we need some more data to look at it.
right, we need to compare.
And we need them all on one page to see what positions we're talking about and what.
Did you,
Does that
you
make
guys
sense, Roger? That was fair, you
ask-
feel okay with that?
in your meeting, did
Then we
you
can move
ask
forward.
Brian for the comparable?
Yeah, I did.
He usually gives them.
We might just need to remind.
Because the rest of his budget was flat. I mean, that's the only thing that's, he asked for a little more for the uniform, but which isn't $500.
Okay, so we're looking at penciling in 3% for COLA for now.
Well, I did
And
ask
then-
for a car.
Well, yeah, but that was already in the
It
capital.
was already in the capital.
Yeah,
That car
that's
was
a,
already there.
yeah, the capital.
Um,
Dude, that car's not going anywhere.
That's what I heard.
Yeah, nice old Riker.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
really, that's scrap metal.
So 3% for COLA penciled in, and then we're looking at the other departments
Yeah,
that
some
are
more information.
making competitiveness
That are asking
recommendations
for other
based
wages.
on specific needs.
Some longevity and some
and Longevity
comparables.
and comparables, all right.
Right, good?
Anything to add, Justin?
That sounds good to me.
Okay.
All right, what's next in your agenda?
Right, so I'm gonna say fire department staffing would be next up.
Does he have the numbers that you sent out earlier that he can put up on his,
I sent you those, haven't
the ones you just sent
I?
like
The
an
one
hour
I
ago?
just sent out, I think I sent you the latest copy of it,
If you
but I
want,
can
I'll
send it
send
again.
it to you.
So I put everything in there.
Okay.
Can I just, one question, you might have answered it before I got here, but the difference
We didn't
between the
discuss
FY
anything.
26 requested and the FY 25 appropriate, are those new positions?
No, so actually, that's just, when everything's at one, they equal each other. So it just shows the difference in value between, so like if I change this.
Oh, so if
to
you
one-
change the COLA, that number up at
Yeah,
top
so-
changes? Oh,
Yeah, so if I
see.
do
Okay.
Yeah,
this.
that's,
So
that's
these
our big innovation this
okay,
year.
these
We can
numbers,
do it in one column.
these numbers equal, because this up here is connected to all. the
We couldn't see it
I
before.
see that, but I just didn't know, I didn't see that number
Big
change
innovation.
every time, I wasn't looking at all the
Think
numbers
about
at
that
the same time.
That's how we do it.
Not a good skill of mine.
One more
Alright.
question before we move on to fire department staffing. Could we just agree on a number of weeks that we're gonna use in our wage calculations for the coming
Oh,
year?
great
Because
idea.
every year we're using 52.4, 52.5, 52.2, and it gets confusing.
Yes.
And
Well,
we
it
don't
should
need to
be-
decide tonight, but maybe Roger, you can figure
I-
out what number we should use.
I'll talk to the treasurer, because they're the ones that usually I end up having that conversation with. But it's usually 26.2 or
All right.
52.1.
Right, and there is some places, although we do cash accounting, that accrue, the leftover vacation that has to be paid in that year, because then you're paying more money. So that, do you understand what I'm saying? If someone has vacation that was
Yeah.
Yeah,
carried
we don't
over.
do accrual accounting. We do
I said
cash
we
accounting,
don't
so
do
it's
accrual-
not- It's not
I-
a liability we
I-
recognize.
Correct, but it's a problem that we spend it in that year and don't have it.
Well.
So that's
if
what I'm saying.
If somebody's getting paid and he takes a vacation, and happens to be vacation during a previous year, the expense to the town is nothing. It's no change.
Yeah, it's
It's
just,
still the amount
How do
they're
they
getting
get
paid.
paid?
it's just,
Go fund page.
So then,
It's
so
there.
then, but we're,
They're
but,
gonna get
but then we're gonna have the
26 paychecks.
situation like when people leave, but we don't have a way
So
of.
Eileen, you're correct. I've had it happen once in my 4 years that we
Okay,
had
so
to
it's
pay
not-
someone vacation. We didn't have the money for them. What happens much more frequently is we have long times of turnover between employees and we have lots of money left over
True.
from,
Okay,
so
all right.
let's just not worry about that.
Yeah, I
I'll
know, I
talk
was
to
just
the
saying, some people do
treasurer's-
their annual weeks to include that so that they have that money, that's all I'm saying.
I'll talk to the
That's my
treasurer
practice.
accountant about that, because I think we're legally liable,
I do too.
because it's an unfunded mandate. We're
That's what
supposed
I
to have that. So I think we're supposed to have those dollars available. I'll talk to the accountant,
Yeah,
the treasurer about that.
Yes.
That changed sometime in the past 5 or so years.
Yeah,
with
I
accounting,
think so,
because
that's why I
it
raised it.
happened to
That's
us.
gonna be a huge hit to the budget if we have to raise.
Right, but
it's
it's
not- it's-
reliable and it's a
it's-
mandate.
Well, they used to have a policy that if you didn't take your vacation, you lost it.
It's a little
And
different now.
the select board had to vote to carry it over for a specific reason that benefited the town.
Yeah, so I'll ask, because I think it's basically an unfunded mandate, so, or unfunded liability is what it is, unfunded liability. So there's something where it has to be, you have to have it, but I'll talk to the accountant to the treasurer.
Principles that say you have to recognize it. The town does not follow general accepted accounting principles. You look at the audit reports, they'll say that right up front.
We
The town
understand
does
that.
not follow
We
general accepted
understand
accounting
that.
principles. We do cash accounting, which is not generally accepted. And one of the aspects of general accepted accounting principles are that you always recognize potential liabilities and potential assets. And that's nice information, but it confuses everybody as to what that is. So staying on a cash basis, in my mind, is far easier for voters in the town.
Yeah, I'll ask the accountant. It's better.
Exactly, except A, if it's illegal, and B, the years we did get stuck, it blew the entire reserve fund. So even if we don't account for it, this is what we're talking about, and having a separate sheet sometimes that has these numbers on it, that we're at least tracking them, so we know what's out there that we should be worried about.
Let me find out about.
You find
it
out,
first
so-
before we all go down the rabbit hole.
Right, exactly.
I do know, I assume you guys have went to the end of the year, that there's 2 payrolls start at the end of the year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The actual number of days during the payroll period that relate to the
Yeah.
previous
Let's-
fiscal year.
Let's,
So
yeah,
that's something-
let's move from, if operational issues, you could check with Roger another time. Now, I'm assuming people have looked at it. Essentially, the plan, as we know, is that the fire chief and deputy fire chief have come up with a plan. It was originally gonna be a 3-year eason, now they're looking at a 2-year eason, because it just didn't seem like it was gonna work to try to have one person in the house at a time. This would be 6 people as of July 1, assuming we could get those people.
Which is an increase of 6.
Yes, an increase of
Just
6, although I believe we're currently looking at 3 people July 1 and 3 people, a 90-day gap before the other 3 come on board. For a bunch of reasons that make a lot of sense, but it also brings the numbers down. Still in the works. It turns out 24/7 coverage is a nightmare to figure out how you're gonna cover it completely, follow all the Federal Labor Standards Act laws, et cetera. If you're wondering why there's the, some of those other little things like the Kelly versus inclusive page on there. So, you may regret asking.
Yeah, exactly.
Basically,
I did ask
We're
a
gonna have to
question.
explain it, we need to understand.
Right, so this is the short version. If you work 24/7, if you're in fire and police have separate rules from everybody else and different from each other, because life isn't complicated enough. There's a maximum number of hours you may work without being paid overtime. And although FLSA is aware that different departments work on different schedules and they try to accommodate that, at the end of the day, there is no cycle that I know of on-off cycles for the different groups of firefighters that does not involve them going over the maximum number of hours allowed within a 4-week period at some point during that 4-week period. The result of that is Kelly hours. But Kelly hours don't make a lot of sense because the number of hours they go over
if you figured out for the whole, if it were even for the whole year, it would be 6.5 24-hour days that they're over. But what most of the departments end up doing is to regularize the schedule and the planning from an administrative point. They give them an extra day off every month, essentially, once a month,
28, yeah.
called the Kelly Day, that fixes that time off situation.
Hey, Roger, did you know what you mean?
Yeah, no, I just turned it off.
Okay, all right.
That, to try to rectify that situation. There's a bunch, different departments use a bunch of different other options. For example, one other option you can do is require them to work all those extra shifts instead of having the days off, but actually pay them overtime for those shifts. So on that Kelly versus inclusive, you'll see there's 3 different things that I calculated out. One is 12 Kelly days, so 1 a month. That's the top one. One is 6 Kelly days. So under the 6 Kelly days, I'm actually using the maximum allowable number of hours. It's in the second sheet, Kelly versus, yeah, inclusive. So if we allow them to work the maximum number of hours they're allowed to work in the course of the year, and we paid them the additional hours they would be working at 1.5 times pay, so overtime pay, that's how it would work. And then if we ask them to do that, but only for 6 Kelly days, so we're asking you work 6 overtime shifts. You have to work 6 and we'll cover 6. At the end of the day, the difference in costs to the town is extremely modest.
Yeah.
I think the best case scenario is like, what is that, 92 to 706, 14K? The difference here isn't actually about the change in cost to the town, it's about wear and tear on administration. Because with 6 people you're talking to, just for Kelly days, the administration has to fill 72 additional days of firefighter service.
That's the box, 70.
Right,
Yeah.
72, right? So what we're playing with here isn't about the monetary bottom line, but about administrative load. Because they also have to fill vacation days and sick days. And it's a big administrative
So
haul.
what are you recommending?
Well, at this point, I didn't know that it was gonna be it's not really 0, it's not really completely neutral, but it's close. I didn't really know that would be the case till I ran the numbers. At the end of the day, they're gonna need to make the call based on it's a combination of when you're hiring and you tell someone you have to work all your overtime shifts versus you have to work none of your overtime shifts versus please could you work some of your overtime shifts. It may be a difference in hiring strategy and
Right.
they need to make a call on a combination of hiring and administrative.
What are they more comfortable with at this point?
They're not sure yet. But until I ran these numbers, we didn't even know that there wasn't a huge cost.
So would I be correct in saying that we're talking about the difference, as I read this second tab, we're talking about the difference between 542 and 617?
I'm sorry, the second tab, where did?
The Kelly versus inclusive?
Oh, no.
No, 580.
No, because so it is a little confusing. The first total, like the 542.
Yeah.
Versus the 60. First
Right.
total is just what we're paying to the staff person under their normal pay.
You're
But
talking,
remember that if you give a Kelly day, instead of paying the staff person, you are paying the person who fills in for them time and a half. Right? And you're still having to pay.
Just run me through the totals of the different.
I'm gonna put that,
So you have the 5,
Roger, can you put that spreadsheet?
I don't know.
I can't fling,
see if
right?
I can find it.
I have it.
You want me to email it to you?
I think I have it. I just gotta get through
So,
my emails.
so everybody can see, because this gets confusing.
It's
There's a lot-
very
There's a
confusing.
lot of
It's a lot of
numbers, so
It's
I'm
very,
thinking about what the bottom line is to the different options more than the concept.
See, and I'm thinking more about what they're actually gonna be able to achieve than the bottom line.
so,
Because we can, I've been saying this, we can
They're
throw
all
all the
important.
money we want in the world, but if they can't
I
actualize
just
it.
wanna get a sense of the
Yeah.
so
bottom line.
at the end of the day, the bottom line is we're talking about for two of the models, it comes in at 706,532 after you calculate in both the cost of the overtime, like the shift fills and the staff. The lowest cost scenario is requiring the overtime for all required shifts and paying them regular time for the absolute maximum allowable under FLSA, which is what brings it down, but it only brings it down to 692, 936.
So that's column N,
First year,
you're talking about column N.
Column N, correct.
are you talking about just the first year cost?
Yes,
Yeah, so.
I am just talking about the
I
first
think
year
it's
cost.
important somewhere along the line to talk about how much we're gonna ask for the override. We need an override to do this.
That is the other question, did you
Yeah,
get a chance
and
to
because
talk to them
Well,
about?
listen, I just went to the mountain today and I talked to himself about overrides and tax rates. and
I'm sorry, who's
things like
himself?
that.
Okay,
Okay, so and he said something that I recalled also, that if you go for an override, you don't do it every year. If you have a new program that's gonna be permanent,
call you back later.
you do your override for the cost of that new program when it's implemented. Otherwise, you're going year after year for overrides, and what happens on the second year if the voters don't approve it? You're halfway into a program and the voters say, screw you, we're not doing overrides anymore. So when you go in, you gotta go in for the whole enchilada
Thank you, Roger.
for an override.
Oh, that's helpful.
that's
It's really
that's
important to
good.
remember that, because to be ready to defend the whole thing, we can't just sell.
But, yeah, I'm not even gonna tell you that I begin to understand Kelly, I think I'll have to digest it. But I had written out some questions that you had, gave me. Did you do any cost comparison on like what the market's paying for these jobs, like what job for fire chief or deputy fire
I
chief?
think we did that when we were looking at the fire chief and deputy
Yeah.
fire chief jobs, and I'm not gonna say we're at the bottom, but we're definitely not even in the middle.
Did these numbers include benefits?
The benefits are on here,
Yeah, but the one it doesn't include is the retirement costs for firemen and policemen are more expensive.
that part we don't know yet.
Yeah, because
so-
they're not expected to work as long.
Right, it includes a number for health insurance, which I
In that
think,
706,
pardon?
in the column N, it includes.
No,
insurance.
the health, so on the first tab, FD, FY 2026.
I don't want to. Oh, you're in that. Right.
So the Kelly was just strictly about trying to figure out what to do about Kelly days. The rest of everything is on that first
My
sheet.
question really is, on this sheet, it says, last year we had budgeted 284.
Yeah, this sheet does not cover the fire department at all.
Well, it shows
That's
284.
last year.
Right, I know,
Right, yeah,
but I'm trying to get a sense of the delta.
right, that's what the bottom of the sheet. Look on the bottom of the first sheet. So there's the total, there's the FY 25 number, and then there's the FY 26
Thank you.
minus FY
Yeah, I
25
see
number.
Where am I looking?
Column D,
In tab one?
42 in tab 1.
Okay, that's helpful. So we're talking about a difference, just for the people also who maybe aren't looking at the spreadsheet or can't see it online. We're talking about a difference, depending on the option, of about 500,000 plus,
Yeah.
depending on the option, give or
Yeah.
take.
But the option of full, not just Kelly hours, all the hours.
It's
Total.
six.
Right, of six
person
staff, right, that's what I meant. When you said that, I was like, wait, I missed
And
that.
that
That's
includes,
six
that
per-
Yeah, that's
includes
That is for
health insurance.
health insurance at the 12.21%.
It's all in
Trying to
numbers,
get-
yeah, it's an all in
We're
numbers.
talking about 500,000 difference to the budget.
Yep.
Which is, right, we were estimating,
Yeah.
500,000 this year, 750 next year, and $1 million the third year. So now it's 500 this year and $1 million next year. So we've kind of.
addition-
500 increase.
Additional, right, remember I had always been saying it's gonna, we were estimating it was gonna be at least $500,000 this year. And then we thought next year would be another 250 step up and we get to the million. Now we're talking about the same 500,000. We were always kind of there for this year. Skipping and going right, so, yeah, we have a
I
lot.
think it ends up probably, I'm gonna guess, if it's 500
I
to
guess-
bring on 6, I'm gonna say
guess-
it's 250 to bring on another 3.
Yeah, that's what I think, not more. Huh. With the training, the uniforms, so.
And this doesn't, I don't have a equipment number.
And I guess my concern is, it's now February, right? There was no fundraising letter this year. I said I would write it, but you gotta call me and say, let's get together, right? I'm not gonna just, Have you been meeting with them regularly, Roger?
Well, we have, yeah, we've been.
Most weeks.
You've been meeting with them on this, and you're meeting with them on managing what they're doing. Like, now you're meeting on their proposal, but are they coming to you now with the, like?
They've been managing.
Meaning,
I'm
you're
not sure what
talking
you're
about the
saying.
new proposal and where you're going. But basically, they're not staffed yet, so you're
No.
not managing them
No.
yet, okay.
They're not staffed, no.
We've been talking about everything from how they go through the process of hiring and what they're gonna do about it, physicals, like lots of stuff.
And you haven't been going to those meetings?
I don't know about them.
Well, it's been like internal, like, it's not really about money, it's about practical operational
Okay.
stuff, so it's not trying to shut
Fine,
you out,
that's
it's
fine,
just
as long as you
operational
two
stuff.
feel good about it.
About what's going on with trying to work with Otis and New Marlboro.
And you think it's actually feasible and can?
Well, what, on Otis and New Marlboro?
I
The whole thing.
guess what I'm trying to understand is we're making a huge investment in these people. We're putting more responsibility on Roger, right? There's like, for lack of a better way of saying it, 80 balls in the air, right? That we don't know which we have to catch. We're making, this is a huge ask and a huge change in the town's finances. So I want to make sure if we're putting this stake in the ground, that we are lining up the management, that we know they're doing it, that we're seeing evidence that they can handle it. That's.
Well, I think, based on, I've met with, Sean and Chris, I think they can handle it. I think they have very legitimate concerns. My concern is, you have to have good public safety. And if you look at the numbers you have here, every time that truck pulls out of the building, it's $5,600. Okay, you take that 184 calls last year and you divide it by $1,010,000. It's a huge investment. I'm not saying don't make the investment, because you've got to have good public safety. But if we're gonna explain it to the residents, we gotta have the comparables, we gotta be completely transparent. This is what we're paying for, and this is what we're doing, and it's gotta be out on the table. I feel like we're gonna be competing with others, other fire departments for the same pay. The other concern I have is that department head pay is drastically different than department works in the police chief. That's a huge scale. Are we gonna, we do this, fix this problem over here and create another? So, there's gotta be this general conversation about the whole thing.
Yeah.
You look at, this starting, and I'm not saying it's not the right starting salary, but, that's $20,000-$30,000 more than, what the police chief. I don't know enough about it to say, that's, roughly $18,000, $17,000 more than the police chief. I don't know how.
Why is that? Is that the?
Well, I don't know. I don't, he was hired under different circumstances here. We got almost a crisis mode,
I know,
And,
that's what I'm saying.
But,
I
would today, do we have a piece of paper that says these are the comparisons of what they're paying in these different towns? We didn't, I don't want to make sure that we can say X town is paying this. We're not drawing the number out of our rear end and saying this is it. But we did a Google search and it said this is it. So it's got to be solid information, because we're going to get the question.
I think the townspeople are gonna ask how many of those calls were outside of Monterey.
18 of them. I got the
We have those,
statistics.
we have one.
I,
18?
yeah,
Just
I,
18?
yeah.
How many calls altogether?
184 or something. I got it, I went.
Jeff wanted to say something.
Yes, sorry.
No, if you're done, but people are like.
I wasn't sure if it was part of this
We're
or
having another
another thing.
conversation, so.
Right.
So
That's what
it is.
184 calls times
Here's
5,600, you said every time the thing was,
here's what
is $1 million right there, which is what was very current.
If I may, I agree with Frank. I think that first of all, the importance of our safety services is can't be overspoken, I guess. You can't overspeak it. It's so important. And it's important that every single person, whether they're a resident or whether they just own property and they're not a resident. Because any place can burn, and any place that has a human in it can get a heart attack or a stroke or whatever else.
Or a broken leg.
Or anything,
We're stuck in a tree.
large and small. So the importance is there. I think that when we're at town meeting, whatever the select board decides, the finance board doesn't have a decision here, right? Whatever the select board decides, to Frank's point, it can't be just, well, it makes sense to us, it has to be database.
Yeah.
Especially if we're talking about 10% of our budget, give or take.
10%?
For
A 10%
increase, I'm sorry,
I
10%
think it's
increase.
bigger than that.
Well, if we have a $5 million budget, we're talking about a
About $500,000.
$500,000 increase. It's about 10, give or take.
It is about 10%. I think it was like 5.8.
So give or take, whatever that percentage is. Anyway, that's, I'm not finished. I have one other point. Okay, it's a huge increase, you know, we have to be able.
You guys, I want
Wait,
Guys,
can we just let
wait,
Jeff
please.
speak, please?
he's so patient.
We're trying to be patient. We have a responsibility to the town to be able to objectively say to the taxpayer, because that's who's paying for it.
Yeah.
It's to say to the
Including all of
taxpayer,
us, yes.
you're, including us, but it's a lot
Yeah.
more people than us.
Yeah.
Saying to the taxpayer, we're asking your vote on whatever the number is, 10%, 12%, 8%, whatever the number is, and a huge increase in your tax bill
Correct.
relative to what you've been paying.
Mhm.
And that has to be fact-based. It has to be based on, has to make sense to the town. We might even need a PowerPoint presentation to say, here are some slides, so you
Well,
have. the
Jeff,
information.
also,
Can I just finish? my
yeah,
thought?
but that's not the only equation.
There's lots of questions. The other point, though, that I want to make is whatever we decide this year, and this kind of goes to Steve's point earlier, whatever we decide this year is not just, we can make these decisions for the next 20 years on an annual basis. I would really think it important at some point to develop a plan, and I hear that there are ideas in the works, but I think it's incumbent upon the fire, rescue, perhaps police as well, but certainly the fire rescue department and the town and the select board to have a plan that doesn't just take us year to year. That's not dependent on a private agency, and they're going, because that's another conversation, but my understanding is they went from like in the 50s one year to the 70s last year, or this current year, to like over 100 next year. You know?
No, they're keeping it flat, the rent
Oh,
is
that's
flat.
not what I had, the last.
No,
I
they're
heard.
talking about rent, or you
You're talking about rent.
No, he's talking about
Southern-
Southern, he's talking about Southern
Southern
Berkshire,
Berkshire.
Balfour area.
Yes.
I'm sorry,
I think
I
Jeff- I
And
think
you
Jeff-
can't just go, and we were told 70 will keep us in business, and
Now
it's like,
it's
well,
under
now it's
12.
now it's under 12. So we have to be careful not to go year to year without an overarching goal, without an overarching plan. So I would urge the select board, fire rescue, I'm happy to be part of that conversation if somebody wants me to be. I don't have to be, but to be thinking about what a long-term overarching plan is. That we don't just go year to year and get pummeled and say to the taxpayer, hey, sorry, but we gotta, increase it by 10% because, and next year it may be another 10%, next year it may be another 10%. That we have an overarching plan.
So I'm just gonna start by saying I 100% agree with you. I'm gonna add to that. Because, when I make an overarching plan for my family, things happen
Of
that you
course.
can't predict, right? Like my Simon's Rock closing. But in general, it's possible to do. In this case, the number of, honestly, I feel like I'm trying to harness, I need a more modern example. But in my head, I'm trying to put 6 horses in a team in a harness,
Yeah.
and they are all running in freaking different directions, and it is 100% unpredictable. I sat in a meeting today where they're focused on just emergency medical. they're claiming that's because when they tried to do this in 2018, the fire department, they tried to be inclusive of both, and the fire departments were not willing to give up, I believe the word that was used was their fiefdoms. And I get it, right? We're trying to work with at least 2 other towns right now, and everyone has a hard time committing, they're having a hard time with vision. Frankly, I have my personal opinions on history, making it hard for people to see the future clearly. So I'm not disagreeing with you, what I'm saying
It
is,
is hard.
I am personally being frustrated by the fact that even when you think you've made headway and you're developing a plan about working as a group, it slips away.
It can.
And I feel like, I don't think it just can. I literally think
This
it
This
is.
is a nationwide, this is a
Yeah, but
nationwide, let me just, this is, to respond to Susan's comment, this is a nationwide problem. Small towns, not only in the not only in the county or in the Commonwealth, but around the country, have this problem.
Yep.
Some have addressed it more effectively than others, and all I'm saying is, as hard as it is to come up with a plan, and as many variables that you can't control, you do the best you can, as opposed to just say, it's going up 10% this year, and maybe next year too, and maybe the year after it'll be
Right, but
15%.
I think
If
we
we're going to a million
discussed it
next
at
year
length.
from 500,000 this year.
We discussed it at length at the finance committee, right? That we agreed that we need to be looking at partnerships and agreements, putting together a 7 fire district. We want that to happen. We have to nail down this budget, we even see what it costs us. And then we have to work on the staffing of the pipeline, because even if we nail
Yes.
down the money, so we're all on that. So we have to move forward and start crafting solutions. So some of the things that are happening is the planning commission did a great job with their survey about the taxes and the different things. So we're gonna look at all the planning board.
Okay.
You know, did you take the housing survey?
Mhm.
Right, so they really already looked at it. We have an opportunity with the seasonal communities designation, we don't know what that means yet. Susan and I are meeting with the head of the regional planning commission, who sits on the governor's board, and are telling him, you know, we don't know, money and housing isn't enough. Roger came up with some new statistics today that I was not aware of. I assumed that our town was still, like it used to be, 300 part-time, 300 full-time, 600. Now it's 500 full-time, 500 part-time. Roger said, no, it's
68% part.
68% part-time, which means at any given day, in the old theory, when we used to say, oh, those part-timers, I was one of them, you were one of them, you were one of them, no, you were not one of them, we were one of them, you were really helping us subsidize, because you're not here. Now it's the opposite, that we have to keep our numbers and our staff big for when the town is full. We're not an
Right.
accordion, so it's costing us. So Roger's collecting data, we're gonna work on that front. We sent him some statistics about the tons of garbage, we've eyeballed some of the calls, and you can see it right in the police calls, right? March, April, nothing happened, you know? As soon as it hit summer or January, when the second homeowners are here, whatever those numbers were. I think we're gonna see the same with transportation, you know, the tonnage. We're gonna work with Tom to collect them from the other municipalities, and really, we need to be looking at all of our tax rates, what we can do. We need to be looking for state aid, you know,
We're
going
saying the
out.
same thing, we're saying there needs to be.
I'm saying
long-term
it very
plan, not
more
just this year.
specifically though, Jeff. We have to dig into the tax rate. It's like, we gotta stop talking about it here and come down, because if we need more than a plan, just we have to talk about it. So I'm telling you the actions we're taking. We're meeting with Tom, Roger's collecting numbers, right? That's gonna start us to have more discussion. We discussed it at the finance committee. We can't really even get into the regional partnerships yet, but I think, you know, this is not something this town's done, and I've said it several times. We need an earmark, being the first small town in southern Berkshire district to say we're going full-time is a huge stake in the ground and a huge commitment, and we should get help with that. And I think we shouldn't think that it's just us doing it. We need to talk to our electeds, we need, you know, to be out there. So I think it's not just figuring it out here, and we're starting those conversations.
By the way, I heard.
So that, I'm just saying, we gotta go further, we all agree with what you said, but we gotta dig in deeper. So read those numbers, that's why I asked, can they handle the management?
It
You know-
isn't just us, according to the fire chief when he was talking to the guy that comes to repair the engine, and they were talking. The guy's telling him, there's a lot of small towns looking at how do you do it, for exactly the same reason,
Right.
volunteerism is down. So ultimately, I'm not disagreeing with you, all I'm saying is,
It's a big job. It's
it's a big job, but at the end of the day, somebody's always the first person to
And where
be
you have to-
recognizing the need
Mhm.
and making a plan to go forward. So if you wait for the other people to come on board, you may be too late. So I feel like our choice is, it's go, no go. Either we go forward with a full-time department or we're gonna be in trouble, and you know,
I'm not
this
arguing
is,
that.
no, I know, one of my, and I absolutely agree, we need to have a longer term plan, and I think the longer term plan is the pie in the sky plan right now, which is a regional district that actually covers ambulance and fire. After today, some stuff that came up, I don't know what that's gonna look like in the next year, because a bunch of things that I thought we were headed towards, we may not be headed towards. And it's frustrating and confusing.
Yeah, it may take 3 to 5 years to build it.
Yeah.
You
But
know,
we need to start now.
And I
Right,
think,
that's
and
my
I
point.
think
And
there's
we
a
are,
lot
that's what
of,
I'm saying, by having
there's a
these
lot of,
meetings.
I don't know what to call it, but politics.
I don't know
Because
how
there are
long it
some
took to-
people that are stakeholders that are key and need to find a way to reach them, to help them to get their feet out of, it's been volunteer for 100 years, let's stay there.
I wasn't here when we changed over to regional schools. It was in the 50s, I
My
think you said.
father voted for it when he was on this select board.
So, you know, and we changed over to regional schools. I'm sure that was years in the making,
I'm sure.
maybe a decade in the making, I don't know. And I'm sure that that was a very difficult decision with lots of balls in the air and lots of things that were unknown, and it continues to evolve as of our recent town meeting on it.
So know that is in the
So-
planning, it's just that with all the shifting landscape, it's hard to know what's realistic to say that would look
Part of the
like.
concern is that the way our government is structured, our government, I don't mean our government, but our government,
Right,
is that because positions change,
yeah,
it could be, if it's not
there's no
somehow.
consistency, it's not written
If it's
down.
not incorporated into a plan,
Mhm.
then as the select board changes, as other positions change, then all of a sudden someone says, I'm not interested in that, forget it, and it goes away. As opposed to it not going away because it's institutionalized in some way, that may not be the right word, but it's kind of brought in as a.
Okay, so we all agree, we gotta get the planning board, but let's focus on the budget now with an eye towards, which is something we've been doing, which is why, let's write down the other things we have, like even if we're on a cash basis, if we have big numbers out there. So when we go to the town meeting, we can really say, these are all the liabilities we have outside. This is what we're doing, this is why. And, you know, we have to really look at all those tax rates, we have a lot to dig into.
I also
This is gonna
feel
be a
like-
very thorny year.
Steve, to your point, you're saying we need to have a number of what it looks like with a 9-person team for the second year.
Forever. Because really, you don't do overrides annually. It's really a tough thing.
But
You know,
once
that
you
two-thirds
do the override, it sets a new cap.
What do you mean by the
No, it
override?
sets a capacity.
Right,
It doesn't mean you have to spend the override.
but exactly,
Yeah.
exactly,
So,
it sets a capacity.
Right.
I don't foresee it growing, this is the jump
Yes.
is to bring on the full-time
But you're
team.
doing it over multiple years, and that's why I say.
Right, no,
When you go to town.
But it's not like there would be a 200% jump every year indefinitely.
No. What I'm proposing is that when you go to town meeting, you don't talk about $500,000, because that's not the issue. The issue is the $1.5 million.
Right.
And you explain that, and you explain why you need an override, because from henceforth, this is a whole new town service.
Exactly,
And the town,
which,
town government exists to provide the service that the taxpayers demand. And this is what it's gonna cost to add to that new service, unless there's a whole bunch of people sitting in a meeting ready to volunteer.
Oh, yeah, good
Well,
luck.
even with, it's not,
And
which
The wheelchair
is
ramps.
why I've been talking about the tax
I
rate
could
so
be
much,
willing to
exactly.
volunteer, but I'm a long way from being a firefighter.
What's the override?
No, our-
I thought the override was the tax rate, an override.
No, the override is when you go over 2.5, you need to have capacity.
Over 2.5,
The voters
Percent
vote to
increase.
private-
that's what I'm saying, the tax
On the
rate.
levy.
No.
It's not
On the
about
levy,
taxes.
not on the tax rate,
So
I'm
you
saying
get-
it wrong.
Yeah.
I'm saying it wrong, but it's the same thing,
It's
okay.
overriding your ability.
Yes, it's, I'm saying it's a triggering,
For a
yes.
longer term.
which also might be the type of thing that we might need a legislative change, given the size of budgets now and what's happening. I'm not saying we want that, but that's why we wanna meet with other people.
In fairness, we haven't had to do this in a really long
Ever.
time.
Well, did we ever do
I
it?
can remember twice in the
Sure.
20 years I've lived
Right.
here that we did it. And once it took 4 years to use up, and the second one, the select board used it all up in 1 year.
Who was that?
What was
They
that?
paid a whole lot of outstanding obligations.
Okay.
And, you know, since we're talking highfalutin, which is why last year we made the decisions to pay off the trucks, to do it, because we knew this was coming, and we didn't want those things on the books this year. But that's only a year reprieve, going to your out years, right? Even though we did that last year, and now we're pretty good with the trucks, this is like the problem with the new police cruiser, blah, 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 blah. Then we pay this, but then it's gonna be, we need the new truck, you know, so it's gonna be even more again, so
Doesn't stop.
it
It
doesn't
doesn't
stop.
stop, and it feels like a runaway train, but I don't really see what, I mean, the age of volunteerism is more or less gone as far as these
Well,
services go.
especially in a community where, this is gonna sound ageist, and I don't mean it that way, but if I wanted to be a firefighter at 71 years old,
Yeah.
you know, it's probably not even safe, not only for the homeowner, but for me. It's not safe. You know, I
And
can't
I
do
don't-
the job.
and I don't think it's-
And young people can't get in, or have a hard time getting into this community.
And that's what I was gonna say. I don't think in the town of Monterey, it necessarily has to do with lack of volunteerism, because there's lots of volunteerism. You look all over the place,
Yeah.
people are volunteering
But not
everywhere.
people,
But we don't have an age group within the town that is able to supplement the need for a volunteer fire
Well-
department. So it's very difficult.
But in
And
fact,
going on the
that's
number he said
national.
seasonally,
So
we have less
no
people
one-
even on our
that
committee,
age
it's the
group
same
is
people,
volunteering
we have less
anyway. That's my
engagement.
point.
So the whole thing is leaning over to one, it's like a two-legged stool, you know?
that's the solve, long term.
Right, I mean, just.
So we all understand it, let's look at the budget.
We should probably come back
All
to
right,
it.
Eileen, you brought up a question, looking at health with finance, you know, because we're,
Looking at,
you know, getting money to help
Yeah.
us finances. How do we zero in on that? Because, you know, we want to tell the residents. yeah,
well, we
we've
tried
ex-
that,
We've
exactly,
exhausted this, but,
we don't, okay.
What's your name, Lee Davis?
Well, we don't wanna leave any stone unturned, so the first thing we're gonna do is meet with this guy at Berkshire Regional Planning, who sits on the governor's seasonal committee, seasonal task force, and talk about what are they looking at, and figure out if any of the things in that task force can give any relief. And we're gonna collect all the seasonal numbers from all the towns to show the difference, like what we talked about, that new theory, that instead of they're subsidizing us, now we are way subsidizing those homeowners who can afford it. You know, so that's the first thing, we're gonna collect some numbers and talk to them. Then I think we should decide, and I don't think we should talk to Lou Davis, I have a relationship with Paul Mark, he covers us, our senator. I think we're always better going through the Senate side, they have more power, they're less than them, you know, he has a big region, do you know Paul? He's very, very intelligent. I would schedule a meeting, do you know Paul? With Paul Mark, who's our senator, and talk to his staff about what do they think of the possibilities, is there an earmark, what is it a grant for, you know, planning how to do the fire department? I would do that sooner rather than later, it wouldn't happen by the budget because of their budget year, but at least he could give us some advice and let us know, he thinks an earmark, what does he think about seasonal? So I would arrange a meeting with Paul Mark and if Paul will take on this, which I think he would, because he's very passionate about the Berkshires and he gets that people really don't, I mean, I did a lobbying day last year with one Berkshire, I was one of like 5 people to go and meet with the governor and all these things about our economic development here and how we're kind of handicapped. And I think that's the same, this is the same situation. So I think Paul, you know, he's very, if you don't know him, he's got this brain, you know, he's like an economist. So let's talk to him, make some arguments, and then let him rile up the delegation. And then tell us what to do, write these letters, do this is how you ask for the money. So I think we have to go, I think that means, you know, also like, you know, when we do our budget hearing, inviting the Berkshire Eagle, like this is a huge change, like you know, I mean, it's exactly what Jeff's been saying, just like it was when they did regionalization on the school districts. This is a major shift that will have an impact for years to come. And if we're gonna be the town that does it and puts it out there, I think we should take credit. We shouldn't do it quietly. We should ask for help. And that's how I think it lines up. If that's, so I don't know, I mean, I'm just doing this, so, you know, maybe I shouldn't select board, but I think it has to be done.
Yeah. The problem with relying on the legislature is they have annual appropriations.
Yes.
And we're talking about something forever.
Yes.
And so that's the big nut we have to crack. And it'd be great to have a little grant money to help along the way. But the state is just not gonna get ongoing commitment to make this happen.
Correct, but
It's
we,
not voters that are gonna.
we
carry the
might,
ball.
right, but we might get some money to get over the hump. And the seasonal legislation, instead of being BS, might be able to have some teeth and have, just like the cherry sheet, or there are some other, you know, like the way there are highways and things like that. Small municipalities have always been disadvantaged. And, you know, bigger municipalities get other services we don't. Maybe there is something, that's why I say the Senate can fight for, that we do need a fire assistance bill that is split on something, that maybe there is a new revenue stream. And I think it's also why we have to look at the taxes, because, you know, the second homeowners, and I mean, look, it's, you know, I don't want it to be a case of us and them, but the difference in what they pay and in what they get it's a huge disparity, you know? So I think that there is room to look there, that is the tax base that has some ability to pay. You know, and we have that tax base, and that's what's making us plan for these much larger things. So that's where I really want to
Just
see
for
the data.
clarity,
But
what you're saying is that the seasonal homeowners, the second homeowners, often have a much higher income level and therefore have less of the land rich, cash poor situation
Yes,
that a lot of the permanent residents are subject to, just for.
yeah, that's
so we're all
exactly
on the
what I'm
same
saying.
page. Yeah.
And we used to pay, you know, we used to do like a 5%, now we do like a 3% tax on like their personal assets or something, you know, in like, and I don't even think I mean, you know, I was in someone's home, I mean, the other day, I mean, the original, I mean, the artwork that but you understand what I'm saying. So what I'm saying is, yes, Steve, while grants are not helpful and all that stuff, right, you know, no, I have with the kitchen thing that's falling apart, and I mean, while the grants, I agree with you, won't be a long-term fix, they may provide some short-term relief, at least for planning, for training, for getting some new systems up, maybe even some kind of an administrator to help, I don't know, but we need long-term solutions. But we really, if we don't ask, we're never gonna get it. And as the legislature works though, as you know, once you get an earmark, and you know, I worked on this, I did it a lot in New York City, in New York State, and I've worked on it up here, I've done it with several nonprofit organizations here. Once you get once you get an earmark, right, chances are you're pretty much getting it repeatedly. So, you know, you get a $30,000 earmark, you know, I worked with one organization year 6, now it's up to 50,000. So like, because they're done for good causes. So I think this town might need an earmark. There's no reason we can't get it given our population.
I remember one thing.
Can we come-
We
We need to kind of come back to the actual budget, guys.
Right, we'll come back.
The problem you find with Monterey is the very fact that our tax rate is the lowest of a half dozen tax rates in the whole state. It doesn't get us a lot of sympathy in Boston.
And our
Especially when
EQV,
our neighbors are paying a tax rate 3 times ours.
right.
So how do you?
Where is that, right there?
There are
That's
arguments.
about to change.
See, no, there are arguments, Steve, we can talk about that. And what really hurts us is that EQV, at least it went down a little on the list. But that is once again, a concept with the governor's recognition of seasonal communities. That's kind of what he's recognizing. Our houses are worth more, but our tax rate, but those other towns have a much bigger infrastructure. And aside from New Marlboro, I don't think New Marlboro and Sandersville pay that much more tax than us. I think they're on par. I think you're talking about Chetfield and Egremont. And and Barrington, they all have business revenue. They have other services. Right. They have other things. We only have one resource, maybe 2.
But all of those businesses are paying the property tax rate also. So
Right, but
I don't quite
they-
understand whether it matters if we have businesses or not.
What I'm
The
saying
fact
is-
of the matter is that our residents have the lowest tax rates. So
is that true?
it's.
What happened?
It's one of the lowest.
Oh,
You can look-
I'll look it up for you and let you.
Yeah,
know.
that's
You
fine.
can look it up on the state site.
Yeah, the state site has it.
Great.
Yeah.
So now we need to get back to that.
Last time I looked was several years ago.
Yeah.
Truro,
It's inched up a little
which
bit.
is just like us. There's nothing but second homes.
Yeah.
And they
Who?
have like 400 kids in their school system. And their tax
That's
rate
true.
is lower than that. But other than that.
So
We also
coming
had-
back to
Up
the
until now,
actual
we had much
budget.
less services, so
Please,
there was a.
Eileen, please. I just wanna make sure I know what my homework is. Essentially, my homework is at the very least, the full plan with a full budget for complete integration of a full-time department. Ideally, an overarching plan that would cover a larger number of years and involvement with other communities, although I'm very hesitant to actually sketch that out because it's very unclear who those players would be in and when.
To sketch out an intention. We can sketch out an intention and perhaps decide who's going to continue discussions or expand discussions. My understanding is that there are two models. One model is partnership and the other model is regionalization. And the partnership is what a lot of communities did years ago and found it was not helpful. It failed. And so they started to regionalize. Part of the reason for that is about, my understanding is, and I'm not an expert, and our fire department personnel are much more expert than I am, of course, but my understanding from talking to somebody who's pretty much an expert in another state is that one of the big considerations was response time. And that regionalization gets you an advantage in response time that partnership doesn't necessarily get you. And that's just the practicality, that's not the budget, that's actually what you're trying to accomplish. But I think that what part of the plan could be, would be for the select board to establish a work group of some sort, whatever you call it, however you organize it, that can then reach out to the other communities, say, this is what we're doing, perhaps after the budget is passed, this is what we're doing, and we'd like to begin conversations either towards a partnership, if that's what the select board wants this work group to do, or towards regionalization. And it may be that the partnership is a step towards regionalization in a longer process, but I think it's about process. It's not just about year to year, and it's not just about saying, this is the end point. It's about really developing a process that can hopefully more successfully address this issue than on a year-to-year basis, or with the debates about tax rates and all of that. Because ultimately it comes down to, if you're having a heart attack or your house is on fire at 2 a.m, how long does it take to get somebody there? And somebody once years ago said to me, well, we could do something with the Pittsfield ambulance service. I'm like, that's a ride to the hospital. That's not.
Or the morgue.
That's not an ambulance. And it's the same thing with response time for the fire services and rescue services. And how do we do that? So I think if we're thinking about a group that's not just dependent on the election cycle for the town, but it's a work group of some sort, then you have a chance at having that group really begin to develop. And that group should be inclusive of key personnel in our emergency services department, as well as different people in the town who may have either a vested interest, and certainly in terms of the select board being on that, et cetera, et cetera.
Just so you know, because others, Roger and Sean and Chris and Susan have been working, but others said they don't want to talk till after the budget. Because they gotta have a town vote.
That's it.
Yeah.
They might not want to talk till next January, okay, but at least there's a group here that is starting
Well,
to explore it.
I would just like to respond to your question, because I really see the dilemma. But I think what Sean did at first was to try to sell it on a 1-year basis, because the number was low enough, he might be able to swallow it, but maybe. But it's not fair to the taxpayers.
I see your
Really,
point.
we
I
always
already agree with you.
We always
No,
agree.
I'm telling you where to stop.
Yeah,
I believe that we present the whole program as a new town service,
okay.
and this is a fully implemented cost. In the meantime, we're gonna stage it.
Yeah,
So emphasize the stage. What happens to the rest of the response for the county is out of our control, but it's worth informing that we're gonna continue to be part of mutual aid, but we're gonna insist that other towns follow our lead, or something like that in the presentation. Because if we don't, people are gonna be upset that our guys are going out of town. And that's, it's not gonna look good. And
You can
our
do the
own
math
taxpayers are gonna
quickly.
be upset with that. So I think the most important thing is to present the whole thing, and then we're gonna have to go for the override for the whole enchilada, because there's no way else.
yeah, we have to go for the override.
Yeah.
And it's gonna be a big part of the budget briefing. We talked about doing it together with the fire department at one of the select board meetings, so we gotta get down to numbers and start digging into it.
So just so I understand what you're saying, Steve, you're saying that when Susan comes back and she says, she says it's gonna be an additional $900,000. That's what the override
It's gonna be one, yeah.
should be for $900,000.
For whatever the final cost is to.
Over and
implement-
above today's.
Over and above
Yes,
today's
that's
budget.
right. So if it's a $250,000 budget right now, and we need another 900,000 to make it a full 9-person crew,
Whatever.
that's what
That's
what
the
you're.
argument, but that incremental increase for a permanent new service is what the override should be voted on, and it may make it sweet. If you need 900, I'd go for $1.25 million.
Which is the number I've been saying.
You can get the voters. to
Which is
vote
the
for
number.
override. I've been through
Right.
2 override votes, and they were not very happy ones. I can
No,
tell
which
you.
is
And so
why
in
we
that
need to
case-
look at every other thing. We left the legislature, we met with other people, we filed for grants, we're doing every other thing we can.
Just so I understand what you're saying, so then we get our $900,000, whatever, that increases our overall budget by 900,000, the first year, our capacity, we just sort of step into it.
Yes.
But we're saying right off the bat, this is what we need.
Once you get the override built into your
Yep.
levy limit,
Yep.
then you don't use it all at once.
Right.
Theoretically, but you grow into it. You know you're gonna grow into it. At the time, I think it was the school budget that was hitting at that point. If I remember, do you remember the
I
first one?
don't remember.
Remember John
remember
standing
ever-
up and arguing, he was
Yeah.
on the select
Well,
board.
I also remember when they made the argument for decreasing the levy limit, and thank God that didn't happen.
Yeah,
The other
Anyway,
piece
I
of,
get what you're saying.
yeah, that's the important thing to do, and you don't plan on doing it every year. It's really.
Right.
then it's good if,
But number one, the state will jump all over us if we try to do something like that. That's the whole point of Proposition 2.5, is you don't do that unless it's a real catastrophe.
But it
or
is-
something major.
But the only flaw with what you're saying there, Steve, is, but the costs are gonna keep on going. So that's why it's
but
important to
they
get
do, but it's
our
percentage,
legislator-
it's percentage.
it's a low
of your-
percentage
yeah.
after that. I understand.
And just
Until
to
the
make
fire has
sure
the same
I
price.
get the full
Until
picture,
the
I
police
also
is
need
different.
to make sure that I have prepared data on the comparable salaries for the various positions within the fire department.
Yeah, something local that they can relate to. you know,
Absolutely.
Great Barrington pays X
Yeah.
or whatever.
The
You know,
piece that worries me, that I don't know what to do about, because that's a comparables we can get. I am concerned about what it's gonna mean for DPW and.
That's what I'm
And
concerned,
police.
that's why I'm
Right.
trying
Well,
to
you know,
pop
you
up
gotta-
the COLA.
Few of the DPW guys are volunteer fire guys, they may go over and apply for the job.
Well, at the end of the day.
Exactly,
that's
what it's gonna do to
work.
DPW,
I'm
exactly.
hoping they'll stay in DPW
And
and
do
do
both.
per diems, because there'll be plenty of per diem work.
Is it some nights Great Barrington lets their firehouse go dark? Someone told me.
No,
They
not to my knowledge. I
have-
think it's
they have one-
five.
they
Oh,
have
look
one
at what,
person.
Justin just
One
sent.
person at the
No,
firehouse?
They have 5 full-time people.
He sent, it was
They have-
done
There's
in
only like one person on. a shift.
1991.
A shift, right.
207, and it was done in 217? It didn't override in
I was
217?
just talking to Chris today.
Yeah,
He said they have one person on shift to drive a truck.
yeah. Then they
Because I was
depended
just-
on
I'm
volunteers.
pretty
Yeah,
sure they
depending.
got, that I
Yeah,
went
trying
through the
to figure
budget and it
out
got
whether-
5 full-time lines.
So
I guess theoretically it is possible for no one to be in the station. If someone's sick.
It's also possible they have 5 full-time lines, but they're not filled.
She was the.
We've done 3 overrides. In 1991, Justin just sent it. Thank you,
Thank you,
Justin.
Justin.
2007 and 2017.
I wasn't here in 2000.
300,000 and 500,000.
What were they for, Justin, do you know?
General operating, it just says general operating
Okay.
override.
Can I ask that just as a matter of operating procedure for us, that we don't, try not to have 3 or 4 conversations going at once. And it's already 25
Well,
after
let's
7.
stick with the
and
budget.
If we're gonna stick with the budget, or we wrap up because, and we stop with the fire right now.
I
and
think we
call
have
it a
to,
night, But we can't run a meeting with,
I'm
you know,
a
6
terrible meeting
people
runner,
having
and I
3
will not,
conversations.
yes, I
you
am.
know,
I'm
it's
not
just-
good at cutting people off.
It just doesn't work, and we're not that the points aren't well taken, and they're good points, but we could be here till midnight.
So I'm gonna come back again because I wanna make sure I know what my homework is. Besides the full picture,
That's where
the comparables.
Tax rate
Could
is
you guys
7%.
stop?
Didn't listen to
Come on, we just said
That's
this.
what Tom told me.
No, that's not our tax. Our tax rate is 6.
Oh, it just changed, it just changed. That's the big word.
Oh,
Okay, please, can we finish one conversation at a time?
Yeah.
So comparables, full amount for the complete integrated plan, working towards having a plan, a longer term plan, and what that would involve, possibly with partners. I don't think that's gonna happen right away, but I totally see the validity of your suggestion. Is there anything else that's on that?
Yes,
Things you
and a
need.
plan to deal with, the, other grants and levels of government to see what we can get.
Okay,
And make sure we include the all-in cost. Right now, that's almost doubling the number of people we have on our payroll with health insurance.
Right.
yes, it is.
That-
The health
And-
insurance is
And
on here.
pension, so that's.
Yeah,
a-
pensions isn't because we didn't have a number, but, cause it's gonna be changing, but it's not changing till 2027, so we need to put the
So
pension
significant.
number on here. But yeah, I got it, everything's on here except pension and Lieu. But yeah, I'm working towards it. Did that cover everything?
I think that's a good start.
Okay,
That's enough homework.
so then.
Oh my God.
Yeah, then, and I don't think I can do the piece of legislative planning part. It's maybe the grants we can apply for personnel, like the Saver grant, but I don't wanna depend on getting.
No, we have to do all that planning, but I'm sure we have to
Um,
execute on that too.
So, that's, I think, what we can do tonight on the fire department, and your feedback is really appreciated. It lifts the load, it increases the load, but in a good way. If you think of anything else, let me know. Justin, do you have anything to add on the general, if we're closing the fire department part and we're coming back to the budget, I'm gonna suggest that at 7:30, we pull the plug and
Yeah.
push that
I'm getting tired.
to the next meeting. Is there anything you'd like to add?
No, Roger, do you have a time frame for when we'll have a full budget in front of us?
2 weeks.
Okay,
So are we meeting next week still?
I think we should do next week.
I think
I'm
we're.
away the following.
Next week I'm away, but I think guys we're gonna meet.
the only other thought,
thought.
Roger, I'm not sure how much the fire stuff is holding you up too. If you could put in placeholders there so we could look at the rest of it, I'm not sure if that's,
Absolutely.
That's a good plan.
because I do wonder if we could start looking at some of the departments next week.
And
that would be
just,
possible.
and can we just, are there any other departments that need to be prioritized, I guess would be the question. I would, right, that we wanna look at first. I would say the 3 that were mentioned, community center and COA,
Highway, did we say highway? Police?
No, we said
no,
police.
and police, that was the 3rd, right? I would say let's prioritize those 3, given their asks. Did we find anybody, did Noel find anybody in here?
Yep.
Oh, He's a wonder, that one.
What's that?
I think that's it. Does anyone wanna make a motion to adjourn?
Finance committee motion to adjourn?
Alright,
No, I'm sorry.
They
I
gotta
was, that was
adjourn
the two
anyway.
twenty-four, you're right, that was on my spreadsheet.
Motion to
So,
adjourn.
no,
Madam Chair.
exactly,
Madam Chair.
yes, all
motion to
accepted,
adjourn.
yes, Steve.
Frank has
That's
made a
the new
motion for the select board to adjourn. I will second the motion.
Yeah.
All in favor?
one. Aye, sorry,
Aye.
it was on my spreadsheet with those numbers.
Justin, are we gonna meet next week?
But it's, so I wonder if we.
Yeah, we probably should.
That always confuses me
Okay,
when you're
and
looking
do
at
we
it
wanna
that way.
try and meet
I
it,
like
are we doing the same thing?
4.6%.
5 for us and 6 for them, or do you wanna do 6 or what?
Is it Tuesday or Wednesday?
And you can compare every town in the
Oh,
state.
yeah,
by
so let's-
tax
I'm
rate.
not
Ladies and
sure.
gentlemen,
It's hard for me
You
to
guys-
hear over this.
we're trying to
Internet
set
thing,
another
but-
meeting.
I thought we did have one.
I don't know, do we have one? I don't think so. We're trying to set another meeting. Normally we meet Tuesdays. Is there
Yeah,
any reason you guys can't do Tuesday
yeah, I was out of town this
this
week,
week?
that was the problem, I couldn't do.
Okay, so you can do
Oh,
it
I
next week.
can't do, yeah, I'm teaching a class on Tuesday
Okay.
till, I think until, next week's my last week.
Do we
But
wanna,
what time
Let
do you
me,
want-
Frank and Susan, let me look at the agenda. Let me draft one up. I'll do it tonight and get a sense. We'd have to post by Friday anyway because of the Monday holiday. Let
right,
me get a sense of if we need to meet, and if we do need to meet, if it's gonna be a Tuesday or Wednesday thing, and I'll get that to you over email.
I
Okay.
can
Make a
meet
plan.
it, they can't, but I can meet
Feel
early.
better,
on Tuesday at
Justin.
5, class is at 6:30.
Thank you. All right, bye-bye.
Thank you, Justin, feel better.
Did you guys adjourn?
Yes, we did.
Yeah, sorry
I'm
about
gonna
that.
stop the
Good night,
recording.
everybody.
Good night.
Stay
As
safe,
I
stay warm.
thought, I am not the best person to chair meetings.